Chapter 634. Young Black Eagle's body trembled as he cried out. What? He had thought of many possibilities. He thought that Dong Wu Lei had come to beg for mercy, or to negotiate terms, or to surrender, or to... However, he hadn't expected that Dong Wu Lei wouldn't do anything, and would only say such a sentence. Dong Wuxiang was dead for sure in the current situation. However, if Dong Wu Lei had hardened his heart, he would have been able to break out of the encirclement and return alive. However, Dong Wu Lei had given up on him and wanted his dying brother to go back. Don't you know that your brother won't live for long even if he goes back? Black Devil's voice was hoarse as he looked at Dong Wu Lei. Even if I don't kill him now and let him leave, I'm afraid he'll die before he reaches the Dong clan's gate. Don't you know? Dong Wu Lei coldly snorted and said, So what? I just want my brother to go back. My brother went out to commit a crime for nearly a year. He hasn't seen my father or my mother. Dong Wu Lei mischievously smiled and said, I miss him very much. I see him every day at home. It's cruel to see him before he dies, but it's better than not seeing him at all. I only have this one request. Do you agree? Ji Wu Lei insipidly said, You came here today to kill. In other words, you came here to kill Wuxiang. Now you've won a complete victory, and you've spared me. I'll die in your hands. I won't be able to hold on for long with my supreme injury. I'll die for sure. Your goal has been achieved. Do you agree? Dong Wu Lei asked in a deep voice. Moreover, this will reduce a lot of casualties for you. Do you agree? The young man, Haimi, suddenly felt that he was panicking. Do I agree? Just as Dong Wu Lei said, I've achieved my goal this time. Moreover, this condition can reduce casualties and preserve my strength. Do I agree? Don't I agree? He hesitated. The Black Devil assassins around also looked at their young master with bright eyes. In their opinion, they couldn't agree at all. The psychological satisfaction of killing a powerhouse in a battle and killing a high-ranking person couldn't be replaced by any enjoyment. However, if he were to kill a helpless person, how could there be any pleasure in that? Wasn't the reputation of the Jianghu people based on stepping on the corpses of their enemies step by step? Good. Guillermo couldn't help looking at Dong Wuxiang's direction. He was ready to agree. He knew that he shouldn't agree, but he had to. The moment he opened his mouth, he suddenly saw Dong Wuxiang. Then, the words that were about to leave the door got stuck in his throat, because Dong Wuxiang slowly stood up and walked over step by step. The broadsword stood upright on his shoulder, and his eyes shone brightly. Obviously, he was full of spirit and energy. The young man took a step back. Behind his mask, his mouth was wide open. His eyes were filled with disbelief. In the depths of his eyes, there was even a hint of joy. Perhaps, even the Black Demon himself did not know about this faint trace of joy. Dong Wu Lei was about to urge him, but he suddenly felt that something was wrong. So he followed young Black Devil's line of sight and turned his head to look. He couldn't help but let out a GA sound. He was completely startled. His entire body stiffened. What did I just see? I actually saw a healthy younger brother. Dong Wu Lei blinked his eyes with all his might. He blinked again. Then he raised his hand and rubbed his eyes with all his might. Suddenly, tears burst out of his eyes. He wanted to hold them back, but he couldn't help it. He covered his eyes with all his might and coughed with all his might. This is too shameful. The old watermark of departure actually cried in front of so many enemies. Black Demon, I have recovered. Dong Wuxiang slashed with his broadsword, and a big tree in the distance fell down and split into pieces. Don't talk about any conditions. You can't kill us now. Do you regret it? Dong Wuxiang said indifferently. Dong Wuxiang was tall and sturdy. When he stood in front of young Haimi, young Haimo was tall and slender. However, when he stood in front of Dong Wuxiang, he was actually shorter than him by a head. The Black Devil young master took a deep breath. A strange look flashed through his eyes. He seemed to have heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he said in a sinister voice, Regret? Of course I regret it. I regret that I didn't kill you earlier. Even Dong Wuxiang could hear the insincerity in his words. He couldn't help but laugh. Young Black Demon stood there quietly for a while. He lowered his head. No one could see the look in his eyes. If someone saw it, they would be very surprised. Because his eyes clearly showed that he was relieved. He seemed to have found a reason to be relieved. He suddenly waved his hand and said, "Give up on this mission. Leave immediately." He turned around and flew away. The 4 heaven-grade assassins behind him were the most astonished. "We are leaving just like that. What are we doing here? So what if Dong Wuxiang has recovered? We have more than 10 people on our side. 4 heaven-grade assassins plus Xiao Gui. In addition, we have more than 50 earth-grade assassins. Our strength is absolutely overwhelming. Even if we can't kill Dong Wuxiang, we can pay a price to severely injure him. And Dong Wuxiang will definitely die. Why should we leave when we have such a good situation? Young master, this." One of the heaven-grade assassins looked at his Xiao Gui's back with some hesitation and said, "I said leave." Young black demon snorted from afar. He said gloomily, "Do you have an opinion?" "But we." Type drop mouth J reciprocal drop mouth, no buts. The world cries when the Saber Emperor appears. Haven't you heard of this sentence? Rather than forming an irreconcilable enmity, it's better to do a favor today, young black demon said. His slender body floated far away. His gloomy voice came from afar. "Dong Wuxiang, you owe me a favor. Remember." The black demon assassins were stunned for a while. That heaven-grade assassin finally waved his hand. He said with some hatred and unwillingness, "Leave." Swish, swish. The Hayamo killers disappeared without a trace. Dong Wuxiang smiled bitterly. He knew that young black demon's words were not wrong. If it was a fight to the death, he wouldn't have a problem escaping even if he couldn't win against the enemy's numbers. However, the problem was that his elder brother would definitely die. Young black demon's departure was like sending an adult to him. Dong Wuxiang didn't know why young black demon, who was famous for being gloomy and terrifying in the 3 heavens, would leave so easily today. He knew that there must be a reason for this. However, he couldn't figure out what the reason was. It seemed that no matter what he said, it didn't make sense. However, he had to remember this favor. Moreover, no one could bear to owe such a favor between friend and foe. Yi Wuxiang and Dong Wulei hadn't noticed that the Black Devil young master had walked far away into the forest. But he had suddenly emerged from the treetops when he had entered the forest. It seemed as if he had glanced at them from afar. Then, he had disappeared into the dusky forest like a breeze. A gust of wind blew past, dispersing the sigh of an unknown emotion. However, how could these 2 brothers care about young black demon at this moment? "Elder brother." Dong Wuxiang took a step forward excitedly. "Wuxiang, you're fine?" Dong Wuxiang couldn't believe it. "Oh, I'm fine." Dong Wuxiang naturally knew that his big brother's divine medicine was a top secret. Elder brother was good to him. However, Dong Wuxiang was afraid of his big brother's unscrupulous ways to achieve his goal. Big brother would be in trouble if he knew about it. Therefore, Dong Wuxiang's gaze was evasive, and his words were vague. "So fast. Genkai is clearly..." Dong Wuxiang wanted to say. Genkai was clearly half dead. So how did he recover so quickly? Isn't this too fake? However, he didn't say anything after thinking about it. Dong Wuxiang wasn't good at lying, so he couldn't speak. His gaze kept wandering around. "You're pretending to be Genkai?" Dong Wuxiang finally thought of a possibility. His complexion couldn't help but sink as he asked angrily. Dong Wuxiang opened his eyes wide. He thought for a while, and felt that this was a good idea. So he couldn't help but nod foolishly. You're pissing me off." Dong Wuxiang pointed his finger at Dong Wuxiang's nose. He thought that he was so regretful that he almost wanted to commit suicide. "I didn't expect that this bastard was pretending. Doesn't that mean that he was watching me make a fool of myself from the beginning? I've lost a lot of face this time." Dong Wuxiang's face turned from white to red, from red to purple, from purple to black, and from black to green. Suddenly he roared. "You bastard! Did you enjoy watching me make a fool of myself?" He suddenly jumped up and ferociously kicked Dong Wuxiang to the ground. Then, he pounced on Dong Wuxiang like a tiger and rode on his body. Then he gnashed his teeth and rained down his fists. Dong Wuxiang didn't dare to fight back. He gritted his teeth and took the beating. He didn't make a sound. Dong Wuxiang's anger would have subsided if he had begged for mercy. But the problem was, what kind of person was Dong Wuxiang? This guy was definitely a super ruthless person, who wouldn't even let out a moan when he was smashed to death bone by bone. So, how could he possibly cry out? Not only did he not cry out, but he was also comforting himself in his heart. Elder brother's anger will be appeased if he beats a mortal. Isn't it just getting beaten by a mortal? I can hold on. However, he didn't know that the more he didn't cry out, the angrier Dong Wuxiang got. The angrier he got, the more he got beaten. Dong Wuxiang didn't make a sound even after Dong Wuxiang had beaten him for a long time. Ai. I'll beat you to death, you tough bone. Dong Wuxiang's eyes turned green with anger. He ferociously kicked him. This younger brother of his had been like this since childhood. He was naughty, but he didn't admit his mistake. He didn't make a sound no matter how much you beat him. He wouldn't say a word even if you beat him to death. I was wrong. Such a child could really make an adult anxious and angry. Cough cough, this point. Those who have children at home should understand it very well. Dong Wuxiang's eyes suddenly turned red as he continued to beat him. He recalled that he had been so desperate and regretful that he wished he could commit suicide. Then he suddenly sat down on the ground and burst into tears. You bastard! You don't know that you scared me to death just now. How would I explain it to my parents if something had happened to you, stupid pig? You're such a stupid pig. Dong Wulei was scared out of his wits when he saw Dong Wuxiang. I wrote this last paragraph 3 times, but I wasn't satisfied. So I simply didn't describe it, and wrote it out plainly. Everyone can experience it for themselves. I've added 1 more chapter today. Counting last month's, there are 3 chapters today. I'll continue to write. I may not be able to write another chapter before midnight, but I'll need a monthly ticket if I can write another chapter. Well, I'll escape to write, and I'll need to double the time. Please do your best to support me. It'll be difficult to catch up after these 7 days. Of course, it'll be difficult for others to catch up if the distance between us is too big. Chapter 635. Dong Wuxiang and Dong Wulei were leading their horses on the road. They were talking as they walked. Both of them were feeling relaxed and happy. They hadn't felt this way for many years. The remaining experts were following behind them. Their lips were blue, and their faces were pale. They were trembling with fear. Unexpectedly, the 2 brothers didn't mention this person. They didn't say anything about how to deal with him. They didn't even talk to him. They just left him hanging. Someone wanted to say something, but he was embarrassed. He was nervous. This road was extremely torturous. Dong Wulei's eyes were still red. He would massage his eyes whenever he was free. Moreover, he would do it stealthily every time. He was very secretive. He was extremely embarrassed. Damn it! The old man actually cried out loud in front of everyone in the hall. His reputation was more or less ruined. Dong Wulei was at a loss. This is too shameful. Young clan Lord Dong recalled how he had stretched out his legs and cried. He wished he could dig a hole in the ground and drill his head into it. I've been possessed. Isn't it better if this stupid pig dies? Why would I be sad? Motherfucker. Dong Wuxiang wasn't an insensible person. Dong Wuxiang would come forward and greet Dong Wulei every time he rubbed his eyes. He would have an honest look on his face. Big brother, are your eyes still uncomfortable? Sai, I'm very touched. You Sai, you're crying. This is the first time I've seen you cry since you were a child. Dong Wulei would be too ashamed to show his face every time this happened. This bastard, can't you see that I'm rubbing my eyes secretly? You're still coming forward to console me. Console my ass. Dong Wulei finally couldn't help but explode when Dong Wulei rubbed his eyes for the 8th time. And Dong Wuxiang cautiously came forward to console him for the 8th time. Dong Wuxiang was beaten into a pig's head in no time. He scolded as he beat him. How did that stupid pig king of Hell Chu teach you? How did such a smart person become brothers with a stupid pig like you? You follow such a smart person every day. Didn't you learn some fucking tricks? You don't even have a little bit of understanding. Laugh. Try laughing again. I can't kill you, Dong Wuxiang covered his head while being beaten. His eyes were full of grievances. What's wrong? Fucker, you don't know what's good for you. Even when Gu Duxing and the others were suffering, I rarely comforted them. Isn't this because you're my big brother? Why? Is it wrong to be concerned about you? The more Dong Wuxiang thought about it, the more aggrieved he felt. I gave you an honor that no one else could enjoy, and you actually hit me? Unable to bear it. There was no need to bear it any longer. Who could tolerate this? Uncle can tolerate it, but Prudence can't. Let me go. Poof. Pooh. Let me go. Pooh. You're still not done yet. Dong Wuxiang finally lost his temper. He flipped over and launched punches and kicks at the same time, brazenly resisting. After this battle, the two brothers' faces were bruised and swollen. They lay on the ground and cried out. Dong Wulei didn't need to worry about the rims of his eyes turning red because they had already turned blue. After a long time he said, Wuxiang, I think today's matter is a little strange. Weird. Yes. It was too strange. Why should Heimo let us go? Dong Wulei held a blade of grass in his swollen mouth like a pig's. He then started to ponder. That's true. I also feel that the Heimo today is a little abnormal. Dong Wuxiang's expression was a little strange. He blinked his eyes. One of them had black eyes, and the other had blue eyes. The best outcome for you and me brothers would have been to perish together, if we had fought today. Or we wouldn't have been able to do it. Dong Wulei deliberated. It could be said that he had the deepest understanding of Dong Wuxiang. Because I've come, and I've become a burden to you. You wouldn't have escaped if I hadn't escaped. So, the final result would have been that everyone would have fought with their lives on the line. But they had a lot of people. Their emperor-level experts weren't as sharp as your saber emperor. But 7 of them were far above you. You would have undoubtedly died if they had been willing to pay the price to fight you. The Dong clan would have collapsed if both of us had died. So, why did he give up at the most critical moment? Dong Wulei said. As for what he said about Saber Emperor comes out, and the world cries, that's nonsense. Could it be that Saber Monarch also cries? Saber Saint also cries? Could it be that he has some purpose? Dong Wuxiang sat up and pondered. Or, does he have some intention? Nonsense. What intention could the Black Devil have towards us? He wouldn't have any intention towards a hostile force like our Dong clan even if he had gone mad. Dong Wulei said in distress. But there must be a reason. And I'm afraid this reason isn't small. That's right. Dong Wuxiang touched his chin. He shouldn't have wanted me to owe him a favor, right? Dong Wulei was speechless. He rolled his eyes and said, Do you think you're a supreme-level expert? Supreme-level expert? I'm afraid it'll take a few years. Dong Wuxiang honestly replied. At least a few decades. Fuck. Dong Wulei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He spat out a mouthful of saliva. Then he looked up and heaved a long sigh. I realized that I was afraid of you in the past. It was an unforgivable mistake. Can't you use your brain a little? Dong Wuxiang said as if it was a matter of course. Why would I need to use my brain when I'm with you? Dong Wulei was startled. Dong Wuxiang's ordinary words had revealed his unparalleled trust in his elder brother. Moreover, this trust had become a matter of habit. Why would I need to use my brain when I'm with you? Dong Wulei couldn't help but feel a little sour in his nose. He couldn't help but slap him. Don't be sentimental here. Sentimental? Dong Wuxiang caressed the back of his head. Then he disdainfully said, You're sick. Dong Wulei was furious. A long time passed before he said, You must be more careful when you meet the Black Devil in the future. I feel that this matter isn't so simple. Dong Wuxiang nodded in agreement. He thought in his heart, Not simple? Could it be that it's very perverted? Both of them got up from the ground. They were about to return to the clan. So they were somewhat silent. I'll leave the clan in the future. Dong Wuxiang was silent for a long time. Then, he finally opened his mouth and looked at his elder brother with sincerity. Dong Wulei's body suddenly shook. A mountain can't accommodate 2 tigers. I am not suitable to stay in the clan. You and I can't fight. But there are many people in our clan who have ulterior motives or groundless fears. Dong Wuxiang racked his brain and pondered. Then he said, Elder Dan, the consecrated elders. And the elders think that my aptitude surpasses yours. So I, and my father can't resist if they want to launch a coup. Dong Wulei silently lowered his head and walked forward. He was caught in a dilemma in his heart. He couldn't bear to let his younger brother leave. But he also didn't want his younger brother to stay at home. As for this person, forget about it. Dong Wuxiang smiled. You don't need to care about sister-in-law. After all, almost all the elites of the Yu clan were wiped out this time. They did it to deal with me. But they did it for you. Dong Wuxiang coldly snorted and said, How can there be such an easy thing? The contradiction and affection in his eyes suddenly changed into coldness and ruthlessness when he talked about this matter. The ambitious and ruthless side of Dong Wulei was finally revealed in front of him. Think more for your nephew, Dong Wuxiang said. Dong Wulei snorted. Both of them returned home while they were talking. The remaining experts obediently went to the discipline hall under Dong Wulei's command. They had almost lost half of their lives. But they didn't dare to say a word. Dong Qigong's worried face revealed a relieved smile when he saw the two brothers return together. Then, he saw that the two brothers had bruised noses and swollen faces. So he anxiously asked what happened. He hit me. Dong Wuxiang pointed at Dong Wulei. He also hit me. Dong Wulei snorted. Dong Qigong laughed heartily. The worry in his heart was finally gone. Dong clan held a big banquet that night. Everyone drank to their heart's content. Dong Wulei hurried over halfway through the banquet. His complexion was gloomy. Dong Wuxiang didn't ask what his elder brother had done to sister-in-law. Dong Wulei also didn't say anything. The two brothers had a tacit understanding. I feel that I have to explain something here. Because I can't make up my mind. This Yixiu, what should I do? So, I have to be vague about it. It's not that I'm lazy. The next day, the Dong clan gathered their troops and prepared to go to war. Dong Wulei and Dong Wuxiang would naturally lead the expedition team. They would take a detour on this road. They wouldn't go through the Breaking Soul Cliff. Instead, they would go through the Double Sun Pass. They would pass through the Shuangyang Mountain Pass and arrive at the Gu clan's territory. They would meet with Gu Duxing. Then, they would lead the troops north and join forces with the Mo clan. The decisive battle that would take place in 3 days was finally about to begin. Dong Wuxiang and his father had a long talk that night. Dong Qigong also sighed for half the night. But he still reluctantly agreed in the end. Dong Wuxiang knelt in front of the clan's gate and kowtowed before the expedition. Then he turned around, mounted his horse and left. The group of people arrived at the Shuangyang Mountain Pass. There was a dense forest on both sides of the group. Dong Wuxiang was walking at the front. But he suddenly felt that something was wrong. He turned his head to look and saw a black light flying out of the forest on the left side. It went straight for Dong Wuxiang. Dong Wuxiang snorted. He stretched out his hand and caught this black light. It was a black feather arrow. Dong Wuxiang's body had already flown out from the horse's back when he had caught the arrow. His black saber turned into a black light. He and his saber merged and entered the dense forest in a flash. Dong Wuxiang rushed out 400 feet in the dense forest with a schwa sound. But he didn't find anything. He was puzzled in his heart. But he suddenly saw some swaying grass from the corner of his eyes. So he roared and pounced over. A black-clothed figure flew out from the grass with a rustling sound. Her body flashed, and she was already more than 100 feet away. Dong Wuxiang couldn't help but be stunned. This person had a slim figure. Her movements were like a weak willow swaying with the wind. Her speed was fast, but her movements were graceful and calm. She should be a young girl. How can a girl suddenly appear in such a place? Dong Wuxiang was stunned for a moment. Then he continued to chase. The girl's movements were nimble, and her speed was also very fast. But her cultivation was obviously far inferior to Dong Wuxiang's. That black-clothed girl was angry and anxious when she saw Dong Wuxiang chasing after her. She turned her head and shouted coldly, I came to deliver you a message out of goodwill. Why are you chasing after me as if I'm your enemy? You're really a hothead. To be continued. Chapter 636. Dong Wuxiang was startled. He couldn't help but stop. That girl seemed to be relieved. She stretched her body and disappeared without a trace. Dong Wuxiang could only vaguely make out a pair of sparkling eyes under the veil of the young girl's veil when she turned her head, sparkling like the cold stars in the sky. He stopped thoughtfully and looked at the black arrow in his hand. He saw a note tied to it. Ao Qing Yin, Ao Feng Yin, led a group of people to threaten the Gu clan. Just a few words. Dong Wuxiang's body shook. He rushed back like a whirlwind. Wushang, who is it? Dong Wulei looked at Dong Wushang. I don't know. Dong Wushang mounted his horse. Big brother, something happened to the Gu clan. I have to go first. You lead the army and speed up. His voice hadn't faded when he clamped his legs on the horse's belly. The horse neighed and rushed out. Dong Wulei reacted instantly. He reached out and pulled the king-level expert down from the horse's back. He patted the horses but with his right hand. And another horse rushed out. Bring another horse. Okay. Dong Wushang's voice was already very far away. Speed up. Dong Wulei took a deep breath. He looked at his younger brother's departing figure and waved his hand. The army also quickened their pace. The Gu clan and the Dong clan were now in an alliance. If the Ao clan took over the Gu clan, it would be very bad. Mo clan. Mo Tianji walked into the study. The latest news is that the Dong clan brothers have reconciled. Dong Wushang returned to the clan safe and sound. The Black Devil returned without success. Mo Tianji's voice clearly relaxed. King of Hell Chu had been asking for news every day for the past few days. Mo Tianji had a nervous reflex. His heart jumped when he saw King of Hell Chu. Chu Yang's face relaxed. He let out a long breath. He knew that Dong Wushang had finally overcome the first obstacle in his life. Psychological obstacle. Among the brothers, Dong Wushang was the one with the biggest crisis. The Black Devil was famous for being strange and vicious. There was also Dong Wulei, who had ulterior motives. Dong Wushang was an emotional person. He was heroic and unparalleled. Such a person wouldn't be easily hurt. But if he was hurt by his family, he would never be able to turn over a new leaf. In his previous life, Dong Wushang had cultivated Merciless Saber. Although Merciless Blade was ruthless, it still went to the extreme. In his previous life, their relationship had deteriorated until many years later, when the two brothers finally fought. At that time, things were already out of control. But in this life, things were finally better. I'm going all out. It could be seen that it wasn't a bad thing to do some things in advance. Are you finally relieved? Mo Tianji finally dared to sit down in front of King of Hell Chu. King of Hell Chu would come to the study room every morning to wait for news. Mo Tianji would feel restless whenever King of Hell Chu arrived. Originally, this study was Mo Tianji's favorite place to stay. It gave him a wonderful feeling of strategizing and controlling the whole world. However, Mo Tianji felt tormented sitting next to King of Hell Chu ever since King of Hell Chu had taken over his place. This guy was like a bomb that could explode at any time. This caused the master of calculation and manipulation, who caused the entire three heavens to tremble in fear, to become restless, as if there was a sore growing under his butt. Now he could finally sit down peacefully. What do you mean you're finally relieved? Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Then he sprawled out on the armchair and said, I've never been worried, okay? You're the only one who's worrying about other people's business. Mo Tianji almost spat out his saliva. His finger trembled as he pointed at Chu Yang. Do you have a conscience to say these words? Let's talk business. Chu Yang lazily picked his ear. You can go out if there's nothing else. I'm going to sleep. Mo Tianji was furious. Is this my home or your home? Get up. Of course there's something important, Mo Tianji said sullenly. Otherwise, do you think I'm here to see your stinky face? The first thing is that the Dong brothers are leading people to the Gu clan. It seems that they're coming here after meeting up with the Gu clan, Mo Tianji said. Oh, Chu Yang closed his eyes. Mo Tianji clenched his teeth. The second thing is that Ao clan's Ao Feng Yun and Ao Qing Yun are suppressing the Gu clan. Oh, Chu Yang's eyebrows didn't move. You're not worried? Mo Tianji was surprised. Are you worried? Chu Yang asked back. I'm also not worried. Mo Tianji forced a smile. I've underestimated King of Hell Chu's wisdom. I reckon that King of Hell Chu might as well fart if he were to hear this. He might even cover his nose if someone farted. Ao clan might dare to assassinate Gu Duxing. But that genius wouldn't dare to brazenly exterminate the Gu clan in front of so many people, even if he was a fool. Gu Duxing isn't just a single person. He has the Gu clan, Dong clan, Luo clan, Mo clan, Xie clan, and Ji clan behind him. There's also the Heavenly Armament Pavilion, that's giving everyone a headache. AO clan only has AO Qin Yin and AO Feng Yin, so they don't have the guts to stir up such a hornet's nest. Moreover, it's at such a sensitive time. They're not forcing them too hard, so they'll just treat it as a farce. But I reckon that these two won't be able to return to the AO clan if they force them too hard, Chu Yang lazily said. In addition, they'd better withdraw quickly. Dong Wuxiang is rushing over there right now. These two geniuses will still be there when Dong Wuxiang arrives at Gu Duxing's place. So these two geniuses of the AO clan don't have the slightest hope of survival. The only result is that they'll become two piles of dung, Chu Yang concluded. Could it be that Gu Duxing dares to kill them? Mo Tianji glared. Is it strange to kill them? Chu Yang looked at Mo Tianji in astonishment. Master of calculation and manipulation. Can't someone from the AO clan die? Let's not talk about killing these two geniuses. In the current situation of the Jianghu, would the AO clan dare to fart even if I killed all of them? If they dare to fart, I'll catch a pack of male wolves and feed them aphrodisiac. Then, I'll strip AO Xia naked and throw him inside. Then, I'll call all the big clans of the upper three heavens to visit. Mo Tianji quivered and shivered. You're so vicious. He sighed and said, speaking of which, we have a problem here. You shouldn't have saved AO Xia. Wouldn't it have been better if he had died? The reason why the AO clan let them out was because of AO Xia death. They wanted them to come out and perform meritorious deeds. They also wanted to choose a successor to replace AO Xia for revenge. Their target was the Black Devil and the others. There's no doubt about this. But they just started to act when they received news that AO Xia wasn't dead. Mo Tianji sighed. Isn't that crazy? Since AO Xia isn't dead, it means that they don't have a chance. Since they don't have a chance, but they're in a place where they have a chance, how can they not do something earth-shattering? Surpass AO Xia? What kind of big thing can be important? It's just unifying the Jianghu, or finding a few young experts for the AO clan, who can reach the monarch level and saint level, to increase the chances of the AO clan entering the upper three heavens. Only then can they replace AO Xia, right? At this time, your heavenly armament pavilion came out of nowhere. Every one of you is a genius with a bright future. You tell me, if they don't make a move on you, who else can they make a move on? Mo Tianji got angry as he spoke. You bastard! You're a shit-stirrer. What do you mean by, your heavenly armament pavilion? Chu Yang said unhappily. It should be our heavenly armament pavilion. Our heavenly armament pavilion? Mo Tianji was shocked. Yes, I declare that you, Mo Tianji, are the military counselor of our heavenly armament pavilion from today onwards. Chu Yang said proudly. I won't do it, Mo Tianji said angrily. He almost vomited blood. How did he become a subordinate in the blink of an eye? Objection overruled, Minister Chu said majestically. I declare that your application is approved. Mo Tianji was so angry that he laughed. He was just talking about his faults when this guy started to pester him endlessly. Let's talk about these things first. Mo Tianji said angrily. What's the use of saying these things? Chu Yang rolled his eyes. The problem now is that these things have already happened. What we're discussing now is how to solve it, and how to deal with it. What's the use of saying these things besides making me feel uncomfortable? Mo Tianji was startled. He was used to finding out the cause and effect of everything. Hearing Chu Yang say this, he suddenly remembered that it might be useful to find out the cause of other things. But this matter was indeed useless. As for how to deal with it, I've already planned it out. Mo Tianji snorted and said, I'm just waiting for Gu Duxing to return home, and Dong Wuxiang's matter to be over. Now I'm basically done with my preparations. Oh, what about Luo Kedi and GMO? Chu Yang asked. Those two are not important. Mo Tianji said. They'll follow you. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and said angrily. But Luo Kedi is missing. He hasn't been found yet. He'll be fine. Mo Tianji said. Luo Kewu doesn't see him as a competitor. No matter how high his cultivation is, he won't kill his brothers. What are you afraid of? Do you think that someone like Luo Kedi can be the clan master? Do you want him to squat on the clan master's seat and whine every day? Chu Yang was dumbfounded. He was stupefied. And GMO. That guy can't even escape. Before the G clan master's seat is passed down, he won't go back. What's the use of looking for him? Mo Tianji snorted. That lecher. I don't know if he's crawled out of his wife's belly yet. These words are very reasonable. Minister Chu rubbed his chin as he muttered to himself. He felt that Mo Tianji's words were very reasonable. Actually, I think that Huyan Aobo would be a perfect match for Dong Wuxiang or Li Xiong Tuesday. Both of them are big and strong. I didn't expect that she would take a fancy to GMO. It's really. Mo Tianji racked his brains and thought for a while. Then he shook his head and said, chopsticks with toothpicks, celery with bean sprouts. And this bean sprouts is a man. The plan had been completed. Everything had been arranged properly. So, Mo Tianji could not help but become gossipy as he relaxed. Chopsticks with toothpicks, celery with bean sprouts? Hearing these words, Chu Yang immediately choked and coughed repeatedly. To be continued. Chapter 637. Then, Mo Tianji began to issue orders one by one. Countless invisible falcons flew out one after another like bamboo shoots after the rain. Block the trade routes. Block the waterways. Block the mines. Block. Mo Tianji had formulated different countermeasures for the first 3 areas of each clan, and each clan's strength. Every one of them was enough to make one's hair stand on end. Even Chu Yang, who was watching from the sidelines, felt somewhat alarmed. Mo Tianji would shout every time he finished writing, "Someone come in." Then, someone would come in and take the order. Then, he would go out and release the 5 elements falcons according to Mo Tianji's instructions. Mo Tianji had sent more than 40 orders to the Gu clan, Xie clan, Dong clan, and other allied clans within 2 hours. Moreover, the small clans that depended on these allied clans for survival. Then, it was the Mo clan's own arrangement. Mo Tianji had casually made arrangements. He had issued 10 orders within an hour. Each of them was aimed at the vital points. Moreover, they were ordinary means plus abnormal means. They included vicious means, despicable means, shameless means. In short, Mo Tianji was unscrupulous this time. He was unscrupulous. He was unscrupulous. He was determined to ravage the enemy clans physically. He was determined to rape the enemy clans spiritually. He was determined to rape the enemy clans financially. He was determined to rape the enemy clans morally. He was determined to make the enemy clans impregnate and then miscarry them. He was using vicious, despicable, shameless, wretched, upper-class and low-class methods. And he was using them in the name of righteousness. This was simply too awesome. It was awesome to the point of infinity. Finally, Mo Tianji had written a declaration to the world. It was as follows. I respectfully inform the people of Jianghu of the 3 heavens. Today, the wind and clouds have changed strangely. Bloody rain and foul wind have emerged in an endless stream. First, dozens of clans have been exterminated. Their young daughters have gone missing. Then countless young beggars have gone missing. My Mo clan, Xie clan, Dong clan, Ji clan, and Gu clan have joined forces to investigate. And we have finally found something. It was the Meng clan's evil plan. They wanted to practice evil techniques and dominate Jianghu. But the Meng clan was suddenly exterminated when the investigation was nearing its end. And the culprits turned out to be the Meng clan's allies, several big clans. The more he tried to cover it up, the more conspicuous it was. The Black Devil clan, the Tu clan, the O clan, the Tian clan, and the other clans had already obtained the cultivation method of the Meng clan. Moreover, they had slaughtered the Meng clan. These clans would probably ravage the entire world within a few years, given their financial and material resources and manpower. His ambition was clear as day. Even if all the powers of the 3 heavens combined, they still wouldn't be able to contend against him. Evil and poisonous arts brought disaster to the world. There was no need to hide the great danger. We are all carefree and happy Jianghu people. How can we be slaves? Here, we will fight to the death to protect the laws of the martial world. The hot blood of martial artists. Martial artists of our generation would rather die standing than live kneeling. It was better to be a broken piece of jade than an intact tile. On the 10th day of the 10th month, by the Lake of Despair, there would be a battle to the death. Let's see who would be the one to die. Mo Tianji finally finished writing. He blew on the ink and said with a smile, "This can only be done after the letter of challenge is sent out, and the other party accepts it." There was no hurry. However, this duke is angry today, so I'll use this mood to write and prepare. Chu Yang's hair stood on end. Mo Tianji was really. Chu Yang was speechless. Mo Tianji first launched an attack on those clans. Moreover, it was an all-around attack. Then, when the other party couldn't bear it anymore, he sent out the letter of challenge. At that time, those clans would have been furious and would have fought without hesitation. Then, they would have realized that the moment they agreed, Mo Tianji had already sent out a declaration for the entire three heavens. Ring after ring after ring, interlocking. Then they would pounce on the enemy clans like a storm. As long as we can hold on until the final battle, we will win. Mo Tianji smiled and said, "At that time, even if the upper three heavens send reinforcements, it would be useless." Lake of Despair? Chu Yang was suddenly moved and exclaimed, "Lake of Despair? Wasn't that where the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword was located? Mo Tianji actually chose to fight there?" Mo Tianji finally finished his arrangements. He let out a long sigh and pondered. Apparently, he had gone through his plan in his mind. After confirming that there were no mistakes, he said, "Brother Chu, do you have any suggestions for my arrangements?" "No," Chu Yang said sincerely. "Your arrangements this time are perfect." It was indeed very beautiful. In the past, Mo Tianji's arrangements tended to neglect one thing: human nature. But now, Mo Tianji made such arrangements based on the life experiences and personalities of the leaders of the clans. It could be said that every move not only attacked the lifelines of the clans, but also the weaknesses of the leaders of the clans. In fact, Mo Tianji had even made such arrangements for each and every merchant. Every move was perfect and impeccable. "Brother Mo, you are gradually becoming more mature," Chu Yang said quietly. "Yes, from the looks of this plan, it was completely the work of the master of calculation and manipulation from his previous life. Brother Chu, you have contributed greatly to this." Mo Tianji smiled and said, "A few days ago, you told me that I didn't pay attention to human nature when making plans. This reminded me, in the past when I made plans, I only considered the final benefits and strength of the clans or schemes. In short, I didn't consider human nature. You don't know that these days, I have been thinking about human nature all night long." He sent out a pensive look. Chu Yang also became serious. This topic was very vague, but it was the key to Mo Tianji's transformation. Later, I finally figured it out. Human nature is the weakness of a person's character. Mo Tianji smiled and said, "No matter if it is a good person or a bad person, there is a weakness in their character. And this weakness is formed when they are young. So, after investigating a person and understanding their life experiences, combined with their current behavior, it is easy to find the weakness of their character." Chu Yang was dumbfounded. "Fuck, what is this saying? Human nature is the weakness of a person's character? This is the first time I have heard of such a theory. It is too fucking creative. So, I am making plans now to deliberately target this point. I almost investigated the life of every person we are going to deal with and analyzed them. Then I found their human nature." Mo Tianji was a little proud. "Then, I found out that the success rate of such a plan is 100%. Brother Chu, you are really a good teacher and helpful friend. Your words have awakened me." To be continued. Chapter 638. Chu Yang was speechless. "Human nature is not human nature. I asked you to study human nature, but you took a different path and walked out on a different path. I know what you want to say. What you want to say is human nature." Mo Tianji waved his hand and said seriously, "I have also thought about it. There is nothing to study about human nature. There are only 4 words. The weak are prey to the strong. It may be cruel for me to say this, but the truth is like this. There are good people in this generation, but good people want to live well. Even if they do not want to hurt anyone, as long as they live, they will hurt others. To survive, you need to compete. Martial artists are like this. Poor people are like this. There will always be people who do well, and people who do not. The good person is a good person. He did not hurt others. But the boss will definitely keep him and drive away the unsuitable one. So because of the existence of this good person, that person will be hurt. We are used to living in this kind of environment every day, so we do not think much of it. But in reality, survival of the fittest is around us. It happens every moment. It is always changing. Everyone is stepping on others to get to the top. Even if he is only in charge of slaughtering pigs, he can only gain a stable foothold after defeating others. It does not matter if he wins with integrity, conscience, or morals. But this victory is hurting others. Mo Tianji let out a deep breath. This is human nature. No matter how good a person is, the weak are prey to the strong. No matter how bad a person is, it is still the same. This is human nature. When a general succeeds, bones fill the mountain. When a person becomes famous, tens of thousands of people lose their voice. Even poor people step on piles of bones. What they eat is also the fruit of victory. Others are not good. Actually, it is not a reason for you to hurt them. But even if you do not want to hurt them, you will still hurt them. As long as there are people, there will be hurt. It has been the same since ancient times. So there is no need to talk about human nature. It is enough to see through it. Chu Yang pondered and silently digested Mo Tianji's words. He slowly nodded. Maybe you are a little extreme, but I have to admit that there is some truth in it. Yes, this is the difference between you and me. Mo Tianji looked at Chu Yang somewhat enviously. You may be cruel and merciless, but you see the beautiful side of human nature. When I look at human nature, I only see the evil side. Therefore, Chu Yang, I won't have any doubts if someone kills you one day. But for me, Mo Tianji, no one can kill me unless they use absolute violence for no reason. This is my fortune, but also your lack. But isn't this also my misfortune? Rather, it's your fortune. Mo Tianji's voice was very heavy. Chu Yang's face also became heavy. If a person only thought about the dark side of a problem, then there would be no joy in life. However, Mo Tianji was clearly enjoying himself in this realm. I like to scheme. I like to play with people in the palm of my hand. I like to be in control. I like to force the law of the jungle on others. Mo Tianji laughed in self-mockery. So when you mentioned human nature, I thought of human nature. Because human nature had no weaknesses, but human nature had flaws. And this flaw would be my greatest weapon to defeat him. For example, if I wanted to deal with you, Chu Yang, I would start from the lower three heavens. I wouldn't fight you to the death in the lower three heavens. To deal with you, I would need to destroy the emotions in your heart. Chu Yang, you may be called King of Hell Chu, but you are a sentimental person. Without emotions, you will definitely die. This is your greatest weakness, but also your greatest strength. Mo Tianji sighed deeply. Chu Yang was shocked. That's right. In his previous life, wasn't he defeated just like that? The destruction of Beyond the Heavens sect made me have no other thoughts besides revenge. Therefore, I only thought of revenge. Therefore, in the land of hatred, I focused on the emotionless sword Dao. But I hurt Qing Wu. When Qing Wu died, his life would also be bleak from then on. I thought that I had gotten rid of my inner demons, but I didn't expect that I had also lost my heart. Without a heart, where would the inner demons come from? Therefore, after Qing Wu's death, I couldn't make any progress. Mo Tianji's assessment of me was very accurate. Therefore, I care so much about the life and death of Dong Wushang and the others. Mo Tianji continued. Because I know that if they die, you will go crazy. If you go crazy, we will be finished. Mo Tianji smiled bitterly. After going in such a big circle, everyone is a key figure. Perhaps this is your path. Chu Yang said slowly with the tone of an experienced person. Mo Tianji was Mo Tianji after all. In the end, he still walked the path of the master of calculation and manipulation from his previous life. At this moment, he had transformed into a person who would collect information on anyone he met at all costs. Then he would analyze their character, weaknesses, and habits. From there, he would formulate countermeasures. He could even understand a person. After understanding a person's first sentence, he could know what the person was going to say next, and whether there would be a change in thinking. What place or scenery could affect a person's state of mind? What words could make a person angry in an instant? What words could make a person calm down immediately? This was an amazing person, but also a pitiful person. This was because he spent his life scheming against others. After scheming and calculating, he lost the joy of his life. The plan is set. Today is the 17th of the month. On the 10th of October, we will fight at the Lake of Despair. Although time is tight, we still have time. We still have 3 days of free time. Mo Tianji smiled and said, "What do you plan to do in these 3 days?" "I want to go to Qing Wu's courtyard to take a look," Chu Yang said calmly. Mo Tianji was stunned. A complicated look appeared in his eyes as he said, "I'll go with you." He smiled and said, "Brother Chu, I'm not afraid that you will laugh at me. During this period of time I feel guilty. I don't dare to go to my little sister's courtyard by myself. Every time I walk to the door, I think I can hear her crying. Sigh, my poor little sister." Chu Yang was speechless. He could only pat his shoulder to comfort him. The two walked together and arrived at Mo Qing Wu's courtyard. The courtyard was clean. It was obvious that someone cleaned it every day. When they reached the door, Mo Tianji stopped. Intentionally or not, he let Chu Yang walk in front. It seemed that he didn't dare to be the first to open Mo Qing Wu's door. With a creak, Chu Yang pushed the door open. A faint and pleasant fragrance wafted out from inside. "This is Qing Wu's scent." Chu Yang was touched. "This is my little sister's scent." Mo Tianji was excited. The two of them raised their noses at the same time and took a deep breath. Then they closed their eyes. Immediately, they noticed each other's actions. They immediately opened their eyes and glared at each other. "What are you smelling? Is there something wrong with your nose? What are you smelling? Is there something wrong with your nose?" The two of them questioned each other at the same time. At this moment, the two of them were protecting their sovereignty. "What can you do about it? What can you do about it?" They spoke at the same time again. Humph, humph. After 2 angry snorts, the 2 men almost squeezed each other and rushed into the room at the same time. "This beast." Chu Yang gritted his teeth and cursed in his heart. "This beast." Mo Tianji gritted his teeth and cursed in his heart. There was a thin layer of dust on the table. It was enough to show that no one had entered this room since Mo Qing Wu left. The bed was neatly folded. There was a small pillow on the pink quilt. On the pillow, there was a tattered scabbard. It was all alone. Seeing this tattered scabbard, the two of them felt sad at the same time. Mo Qing Wu had hugged this thing during the most difficult time of her life. Mo Qing Wu at that time. Just thinking about it made their hearts ache. Chu Yang only felt his eyes heat up. He turned his head and looked at Mo Tianji fiercely, as if he wanted to eat him. This time, Mo Tianji didn't have the courage to look him in the eyes. He lowered his head in shame. "Look at what you've done." Minister Chu stomped his feet and scolded with heartache. Mo Tianji sighed sadly. Chu Yang stepped forward and gently picked up the scabbard from the pillow. The scabbard seemed as light as nothing. It didn't seem to have changed at all. However, Chu Yang still felt the difference. The scabbard was obviously much cleaner than when he gave it to Mo Qing Wu. In addition, the color of some places was darker. An image appeared in front of him. Mo Qing Wu hugged the scabbard pitifully, her face pressed against the scabbard. She sat in front of the door and looked forward to it. "Brother Chu Yang, I miss you so much. Brother Chu Yang, every time I hug the scabbard, I feel that you will come to pick me up soon." Chu Yang sighed deeply. His heart ached. Mo Tianji stepped forward. Just as he was about to check, Chu Yang glared and raised the scabbard. Mo Tianji stared at him for a long time and finally retreated. Chu Yang gently lifted the quilt. A delicate fragrance wafted out. He couldn't help but sniffle. Behind him, Mo Tianji's face was ferocious. He almost wanted to kick this shameless person out. Then, Chu Yang sat on the edge of the bed and didn't move. Mo Tianji touched his nose. Finally, he walked over and sat on the edge of the bed. Naturally, Minister Chu rolled his eyes. However, the ghost master didn't care. He coughed twice and sat down calmly. Then he touched left and right. In the next moment, the two of them touched the bottom of the quilt at the same time. They immediately realized that there was a texture that didn't belong to the quilt. There was also a rustling sound. Then, the two of them started to fight fiercely. Under the quilt, there were obviously some scraps of paper. Mo Qingwu must have written something and hidden it here. The two of them came here for this. At that time, Mo Qingwu must have had a lot of feelings in her heart. However, she had no one to talk to. She could only write something and hide it. But where could a little girl hide it? In the eyes of people like Chu Yang and Mo Tianji, it was naturally easy for them to find it. Today, I went to the hospital for a checkup. I did a CT scan and everything. If you don't go to the hospital, you won't know how difficult it is to see a doctor. I can bet that there are more people in the hospital than in any market. I went there at 8:30. I queued up until 8:50. She went to the orthopedics department and waited in line until 10:30. She was then given a checkup. She waited in line at the entrance of the CT department until 10:30 before she was called in. Lie on that thing that countless people have laid on, stretch and retract in and out, up and down. And when done, take the film 3 hours later. He decided to take a nap on the recliner in the hospital. At 2:30 in the afternoon, he finally queued up to take out the film. Below are the results of the examination. Perhaps some of the brothers and sisters will not understand, so I will add brackets to explain. The waist is bulging and loose. This seems to mean that it has been compressed. It means that it was originally round, but now it is flat. Disc herniation, early stage, not serious. Deep lumbar muscle strain, meaning the part of the strain is not on the surface. Low lumbar muscle strain, degree of strain. Deep cervical spine strain, same as above. Early stage of curvature of the spine. That is a little deformed, originally straight, but the middle part begins to curve outwards. The initial period is over, but not yet due. Note that this is not the initial period of school. Adhesive scapulohumeral periarthritis, severe strain of the muscles around the left shoulder, muscle adhesion, severe strain of the left shoulder directly. I have to reflect on this point. This has nothing to do with writing. In the past, I was tired of carrying sacks and doing farm work. I worked as a stevedore at the train station. I once personally contracted 20 mu of land. That's basically the above. Doctor's advice. 1. It's best not to sit. Keep moving. Don't keep moving for more than half an hour. I roll my eyes at the sky. Is this possible? Then how am I going to write? If I don't write, how am I going to make money? If I don't make money, the doctors won't let me eat. 2. I recommend systematic treatment. Even massage and electrotherapy should be done in the hospital. After a hard struggle, I tentatively decided on 10 days. Go every morning. 3. It's best not to smoke. What does this have to do with smoking? Ignore. 4. Pay attention to your diet. Make sure your work and rest is normal. Did you see that? 3 decisions. 5. Pay attention to yourself. Don't exercise intensely, but don't exercise intermittently. Is there something wrong with this sentence? I just did a health checkup half a month ago. There were no problems with blood pressure, blood sugar, and blood lipids. I was smug for a long time. I didn't expect that. This had nothing to do with that. If it wasn't for the numbness in my left hand when I was writing, and slowly the numbness in my upper body, I might have continued writing like this. But now I really don't dare to. Writing this paragraph and delaying everyone's enjoyment of reading, I'm guilty. So I went out for a walk, exercised, and came back to write chapters. Above. Double the period. My future was great. Then this happened. Should I cry? To be continued. Chapter 639. Let go. Chu Yang glared at him fiercely. Let go. Mo Tianji was furious. Let go. This is what little Wu wrote for me. Chu Yang really wanted to punch this guy in the nose. Bullshit. I can't read the letter written by my little sister. How can an outsider like you read it? Mo Tianji refused to budge. After a long time, the two finally compromised. Half each. Mo Tianji's face twisted when he saw the first half of the letter. Stinky second brother. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. Mo Tianji's face turned pale. He sighed and turned over the letter. The second one. Stinky second brother Emotianji, I hate you. Emotianji rubbed his temples and looked at the third one. Brother Chu Yang, I miss you so much. When will you come to pick me up? Emotianji's face turned black. The fourth one. Brother Chu Yang, I miss you so much. I cried again today. The more I miss you, the sadder I feel. The fifth one. Brother Chu Yang, come quickly. They bullied me. Second brother also bullied me. Little Wu is dying. I miss you. Brother Chu Yang, I miss you. Emotianji quickly flipped through the whole stack. There were more than 100 letters. Besides cursing him, she was also thinking of Chu Yang. Perhaps, in Emo Ching Wu's heart, he was the one who hurt her the most. After all, she had a premonition of other people's hurt. She was prepared for it. Only he was caught off guard. But I really did it for your own good. Emotianji's heart felt like it was being stabbed. His hands trembled. King Chu Yang, I will kill you. Emotianji finally shouted with grief and indignation. He looked at the last 3 letters. One of them said, Brother Chu Yang, if you come, I will be your wife, okay? The second one. Brother Chu Yang, when I grow up, I will be your wife, okay? The third one. Brother Chu Yang, you said that when I grow up, you will marry me. I am looking forward to it. These 2 pieces of paper were at the end, and they were crumpled. It seemed that a certain lowly felt embarrassed after writing them, so she secretly stuffed them at the bottom. Emotianji exploded. He looked at Chu Yang with infinite grief and indignation. You beast! You actually abducted my little sister's pure heart. At the side, Chu Yang was heartbroken. As he read and read, he looked at the lines of Emo Chingwu's handwriting. It was young and tender but proper. It was as if he could see how miserable Emo Chingwu was at that time. The more Emo Chingwu thought about him, the more upset she was at that time. Otherwise, how could a 10-year-old girl come up with so many strange ideas? Minister Chu's heart ached when he saw these Lolita girls pouring out their feelings one after another. At the same time, he was also unable to restrain his anger. He didn't expect that Emotianji would actually take the initiative to launch an attack. It was as if he had thrown a grenade into a pile of explosive barrels. King Chu Yinhui instantly exploded. Bastard! This is all your family's fault for mistreating Xiao Wu. Otherwise, why would he think of me like this? Who am I? At most, I only stayed with her for a little more than a month. What about you? You have no sense of shame at all. Filth flows back to the bottom. Your Emo clan is the worst. You actually turned around and accused me of abducting your sister? You should treat her better. Do you think I abducted her? King Chu Yinhui could be considered valiant. He could be considered the first person in history to fight back so righteously after abducting someone else's sister. Emotianji fumed. You really admitted that you abducted my sister? He suddenly narrowed his eyes. What you said at that time, it can't be true, right? Chu Yang was stunned. He immediately reacted and said resentfully, Didn't you say it before? By the time your sister grows up, I will have become an old gang. But looking at this sign, it is very possible. Emotianji circled around the room a few times. He was extremely distressed. When Xiao Wu was at her most helpless, only you were there to comfort her. After a long time, although she was young, her heart had a deep-rooted dependence on you. This kind of dependence could easily turn into love after she grew up. He grabbed his hair and sighed. If you let her stay with you and see her often, I'm afraid she can only let nature take its course. But when she was suffering the most, you were the one she missed. And when she was at her most helpless, you saved her. This made her even more dependent on you. Not long after you saved her, she was taken away by a supreme martial artist. In this way, the misunderstanding between her and her family was not cleared up before she left. The only good person in her heart was you. After that, she didn't see you for many years. How could she not miss you? When she grows up to 14 or 15 years old, she will have her first awakening of love. In this kind of yearning, she will be able to turn this kind of feeling into an unforgettable love. This is bad. This is really bad. Emotianji grabbed his hair and spun it around like a donkey tied to a mill. Chu Yang drew a breath of cold air. Then his heart bloomed with joy. Emotianji was right. If he and Emo Ching Wu continued to stay like this, Mo Qingwu would definitely smoothly transition into a sibling relationship. Then, he would be really dumbfounded. But now, humph. Although he was very reluctant to let her be taken away by a supreme martial artist, it seemed that everything could be done naturally. Mo Tianji's understanding of Mo Qingwu was unparalleled in the world. His grasp of human nature and the evolution of emotions was even more unparalleled in the world. Since he said so, there was definitely such a possibility. Minister Chu was overjoyed. He smiled from ear to ear. But on the surface he was dumbfounded and asked, No way. Brother Mo, this is a little too dangerous for you to listen to. How can a little girl have so many twists and turns? Mo Tianji was furious. He said exasperatedly. Others may not have, but Xiao Wu definitely has. What should we do? Minister Chu said blankly. What should we do? You've gotten yourself into big trouble. You are asking me what to do. What if little sister comes back and grows up to love you? King of Hell Chu, you will die. Mo Tianji clenched his teeth. His usual calmness was nowhere to be seen. He pointed at King of Hell Chu's nose and scolded him. The saliva in his mouth sprayed on King of Hell Chu's face. You're right. Minister Chu was deeply worried. I'm 18 years old this year. I'm afraid that an average person would be that old by now. I can't possibly wait for a little girl for who knows how many years. Otherwise, I would become an old man. Ha! Mo Tianji was startled. He tilted his head and looked at Chu Yang. Brother Mo, you are right to remind me. Minister Chu said firmly. I should also think about marriage. What if Xiao Wu is really like what you said? That would be terrible. What? Mo Tianji jumped up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He thought in the blink of an eye. If little sister comes back and finds out that her beloved brother Chu Yang is already married, so many years of waiting will be in vain. Wouldn't she be heartbroken? That little girl is very stubborn. What if? Brother Mo, Chu Yang said in a sorrowful manner. I understand how you feel. I also understand that this matter is very important. So, you don't have to worry. I will solve this personal problem as soon as possible. You are right. Xiao Wu is too young. I can't afford to delay. Mo Tianji was dumbfounded. He stared blankly. I said that I didn't do anything during this time. But I did have a lot of beautiful girls in these 3 days. I will try to develop. Chu Yang's eyes revealed the color of peach blossoms. He said in a very conceited manner. Brother Mo, it shouldn't be difficult to find a wife with my current fame and reputation. Find a wife and get married? You dare. Mo Tianji was flustered and exasperated. He jumped up and down. Motherfucker. You want to run away after stirring up trouble? Let me tell you, King of Hell Chu. Don't think about getting married before Xiao Wu comes back. You find one, and I will kill one for you. You find two, and I will kill two for you. Can you be reasonable? Minister Chu cried out in grievance. I joked about waiting for your sister earlier. Wasn't I forced by your words? Moreover, you didn't agree. If your sister likes me, you will kill me. But now, you actually want to interfere with my decision to find a wife? You are interfering too much, right? Do you think you are my father? Mo Tianji's face turned red. He fiercely argued. Anyway, you can't. What if my sister really falls in love with you? If you get married, won't my sister be sad? Mo Tianji was already unreasonable. He was pestering endlessly. Chu Yang spread out his hands. I have never seen someone as difficult to please as you. Tell me, what should I do? Let me hear it. You want me to keep my body useful, so that I can woo your sister? You dare. Mo Tianji roared. Then isn't it? Minister Chu spread out his hands. Then, I will quickly find a wife and get married. Is that wrong? You dare. Mo Tianji roared again. Fuck. Minister Chu was angry. What do you want to do? Are you fucking crazy? Mo Tianji was very conflicted. He didn't want to let his sister marry this beast, but he also didn't want his sister to be sad. He knew Mo Qingwu's temper. If she came back and found out that Chu Yang was married, she would certainly collapse. It wouldn't be strange if something happened to her because of this. Anyway, you are not allowed to woo my sister. Moreover, you are not allowed to get married before my sister comes back. Mo Tianji retorted. Old Hui, you really don't want to serve me. Minister Chu turned around and walked away, cursing along the way. Mother told me not to get married. She told me to wait for a little girl. When she came back, I didn't even want to woo her. Mother told me that I am already 18 years old. I don't know how many more years I will have to wait. It would be useless even if I get married. Brother Chu. Mo Tianji hurriedly stopped him. He thought for a long time, and finally made a concession. He said in a low voice, "Actually, I think that you being my sister's husband is also not bad." These words were said while gritting his teeth. It was clear that he was reluctant to part with his beloved. Moreover, he could go back on his words at any time. "I don't care." Chu Yang raised his head. "What do you want?" Mo Tianji roared. "I have already made the biggest concession." "You made a concession? Okay, even if I accept it, let me ask you. What if your sister comes back and doesn't fall in love with me? You want me to wait for her? And wait for her? My youth, who will make up for it? I am in the prime of my life. I am a heroic and elegant young man. How many years will there be like this in my life?" Mo Tianji, don't forget. Minister Chu spoke with conviction. You want me to make such a sacrifice without paying a price? Dream on. Happy face, I beg for votes. Chapter 640. Mo Tianji was tongue-tied. He was speechless. He knew that he was making things difficult for Chu Yang. His little sister's situation was not decided yet, so it was unreasonable for him to not let him find a wife. But, even though it was not decided yet, he was more than 10% sure that it would develop in that direction. Was it okay for him to not prepare for his little sister? Brother Chu, you have to consider this carefully. After all, you also like Xiaowu. You don't want Xiaowu to be sad, right? Mo Tianji saw that Minister Chu was furious. So, he had no choice but to change his strategy. He tried to reason with him. He changed from being aggressive to trying to persuade him. Brother Mo, I like Xiaowu very much. But, you should know what kind of like I have. Chu Yang confided in him. Xiaowu is smart and cute. She is pure and innocent. Who wouldn't like her? But this is completely different from what you think. Minister Chu clearly felt guilty when he said this. So he couldn't help but sigh. What he liked, and what Mo Tianji thought were naturally two different things. However, his kind of like was indeed not the kind of like that Mo Tianji thought in his heart. I know. Mo Tianji sighed. He continued to argue for his little sister's happiness. Brother Chu, you are only 18 years old. Even if you wait for 5 years, you will only be 20 years old. You can afford to wait. Brother Mo, Chu Yang said in a sorrowful manner. I understand how you feel. I also admit that you're a good elder brother. You've worried so much for your younger sister. You're really meticulous. It is Xiaowu's greatest fortune to have a brother like you. Mo Tianji smiled warmly. He was obviously a little dizzy from Chu Yang's praise. She is my little sister. If I don't pamper her, who will pamper her? Chu Yang felt like vomiting in his heart. Then he continued to say sincerely, Brother Mo, you and I are both men. You should know that we start to fall in love when we are 13 or 14 years old. I am 18 this year. Minister Chu sighed. His voice made people want to cry. If one only listened to his tone, it seemed as if he didn't say 18, but 80. And I, Chu Yang, am still a child. It wasn't that he was being pretentious. It was just that he couldn't stand the sight of such vulgar women. Besides, I'm a man with a heavy heart and a heavy heart. I don't want to be a womanizer. Minister Chu's voice was full of emotion. He was trying his best to express his moral integrity. Even though he was expressing his helplessness, he was clearly hinting. Mo Tianji, you've chosen me as your brother-in-law. You found the right person. How could there be a man as outstanding as me in this world? If you don't hold on tight for your sister, then you're really blind. Mo Tianji grabbed Chu Yang's hand and said, Yes, I believe you. Sigh. That Miss Wu is such a great beauty with peerless talent. She also has deep feelings for you, Brother Chu. Yet, Brother Chu, you are so courteous and not the slightest bit flustered. He's a role model for our generation. Regarding Chu Yang's moral integrity in this aspect, Mo Tianji was absolutely trustworthy. It was no secret that the information that Mo Tianji collected about Chu Yang was the most detailed in the entire world. How could he not know that Chu Yang had never been involved in any scandals with any woman until now? As a man in troubled times, and a man with a high position and power, how many women could he not have? It could be said that as long as King of Hell Chu said, "I want to marry a wife," then, the Emperor of Iron Cloud Empire, Tai Tai Butian, could even choose a concubine for him. Mo Tianji firmly believed in his own speculation. However, King of Hell Chu had kept his chastity. To be able to do this was simply unimaginable. He was a saint. If such a man was unreliable, what other man could be reliable? Thinking of this, Mo Tianji's desire to hold on to Chu Yang for his sister became more and more urgent. 18. Minister Chu said in frustration, "It's time to find one." "Don't worry, Brother Chu. There's really no need to worry about this." Mo Tianji waved his hand. "It's better to choose more." Chu Yang smiled bitterly. "Brother Mo, you and I are both men. You should know, sometimes it's very uncomfortable to be impulsive. I've already poured cold water on my head dozens of times this year." "Yes, yes." Mo Tianji's face darkened and said, "It's indeed uncomfortable." Thinking of the time when he was impulsive and did something to his own maid, he could not help but admire Minister Chu's ability to pour cold water on his head. A man who could do this was very rare. "And if you really want me to wait for little Wu to grow up, then it'll take at least 4 or 5 years to get married, right?" Chu Yang's face was somewhat distorted. "Get married?" Mo Tianji wanted to curse. "My sister will only be 15 years old in 4 or 5 years, and you want to do it?" However, thinking that he was the one asking for help, he could only swallow his anger and say with a hollow laugh, "Brother Chu's calculation is really good. What will I do in these 4 or 5 years? Won't I suffocate to death?" Chu Yang righteously looked at Mo Tianji. "Let's not talk about other things. Brother Tianji, can you keep your chastity for 4 or 5 years? Mo Tianji was flabbergasted. "Even though I haven't married yet, I already have several concubines. How can I be like you? Keep my chastity for 4 or 5 years. Motherfucker, wouldn't I be a cuckold then? But my heavenly armament pavilion is still in the period of development. It's surrounded by strong enemies and danger lurks everywhere. The future is uncertain. I really don't have time to think about love." Chu Yang changed the topic. "Yes, yes, yes, yes." Mo Tianji hurriedly said, "A real man should put his career first. Even though everyone in our heavenly armament pavilion is a peerless genius, we lack a resourceful military advisor." Chu Yang sighed and said, "Brother Tianji, I won't say anything else. You want me to keep my chastity until your sister comes back. That's fine, but I have a condition." Chu Yang had finally arrived at his position after circling around. He had finally begun to reveal his true intentions, and had started to fight with real swords and spears. Mo Tianji bitterly smiled. "Motherfucker, does this little guy want me to sell myself as a slave? You will be the military advisor of my heavenly armament pavilion. We will call each other brothers and create great things together." Chu Yang righteously said, "Of course, in return, I will try my best to restrain myself and wait for your sister to come back. If Xiao Wu is truly, deeply in love with me, then I will have no choice but to sacrifice myself to fulfill her wish." Minister Chu sighed as he finished speaking. It seemed as if he had made a great sacrifice for the sake of the Chu family. Mo Tianji's heart was filled with mixed feelings. This matter, how did it develop to this point? Not only do I have to sell myself to him, but even my sister has to be given to him. Moreover, the other party is so unwilling. It seems as if he is doing me a great favor. This guy is actually sacrificing himself to help my sister? Even though Mo Tianji was quick-witted and clever, he was still confused by Chu Yang's words. Mo Tianji smacked his lips. Then he muttered to himself in a somewhat mysterious manner. "But why do I feel that something is wrong when I listen to it? The meaning behind this is truly confusing. Brother Mo, you don't have to be embarrassed." Chu Yang sighed. "I know that my heavenly armament pavilion is small and can't accommodate a great Buddha like you. Of course, if you have any objections, just pretend that I didn't say anything." He seemed to be relieved. I should quickly find a wife. In fact, now that I think about it, I am ashamed of the lower three heavens. Don't. Mo Tianji hurriedly stopped this guy from continuing. He gritted his teeth. Isn't it just being a military advisor? Moreover, it's a great cause for brothers. I, Mo Tianji, can't ask for anything more. How can I not agree? But I don't want you to force yourself. Chu Yang said hypocritically. I'm not forcing myself. Mo Tianji said angrily. But I don't want you to make a decision against your will. After all, if you are in a bad mood and don't work hard in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion, I might as well cancel this agreement. After all, my youth can't be lost. Minister Chu continued to persuade. He beat around the bush to prevent future troubles. Am I, Mo Tianji, that kind of person? Mo Tianji was furious. But no buts. This matter is settled. Mo Tianji waved his hand domineeringly and made the final decision. But King of Hell Chu, if you don't wait for my sister, then I am worse than a beast. I will be struck by lightning. I will be pierced by 10,000 arrows. I will not be reincarnated after death. I will fall into hell forever. Chu Yang raised his hand and swore. This oath was earth-shattering. It made the hair of those who heard it stand on end. Moreover, Brother Mo has helped me. How can I take advantage of you, and then not acknowledge it? Don't worry. I will try my best to cultivate my relationship with your sister. No matter what the result is at that time, I will accept it. Even if little Wu doesn't like me. I will. Chu Yang said with difficulty. Mo Tianji was greatly moved. Such a vicious oath was enough to show how much Chu Yang valued him. He was willing to make such a big promise and sacrifice for his alliance. Although Mo Tianji was a scheming person, he couldn't help but feel a hot-blooded feeling of a gentleman would die for his bosom friend. Brother Chu, don't worry. I, Mo Tianji, am not an ungrateful person. Mo Tianji said solemnly. However, he was somewhat worried in his heart. Although Chu Yang had agreed, it was only because of him. It was only a condition of exchange. There was nothing to say about his little sister's side. After all, Chu Yang only had the kind of pure brotherly love for little Wu at present. Mo Qing Wu's change was very easy. When the conditions were right, success would follow naturally. Mo Tianji's yearning for her would turn into undying yearning. However, Chu Yang was an adult. For an adult to have feelings for a little girl, this was very difficult. Putting himself in Chu Yang's shoes, Mo Tianji felt that if he was in Chu Yang's shoes, he would feel very awkward and difficult to accept. Brother Chu, I know this matter is really difficult for you. Mo Tianji said sincerely and apologetically. To be continued. Chapter 641. You're too kind. Minister Chu was overjoyed, but he smiled faintly and said, Brother Mo, you're too kind. Don't worry, I'll overcome this inner demon. Mo Tianji sighed. From the feelings for his sister to the feelings for his lover. The inner demon was indeed an inner demon. I'm really making things difficult for him. Chu Yang sighed on the outside, but he was proud of himself. Do I have this inner demon? Damn it. If I did, that would be weird. So this matter is settled? Chu Yang asked. This matter is settled, Mo Tianji said. The two looked at each other, reached out and shook hands. Brother Chu, recruiting me into the Heavenly Armament Pavilion is something you've been planning for a long time, right? Mo Tianji smiled. Chu Yang smiled. But it's also consensual, isn't it? Brother Chu is so attentive to the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. It looks like you're preparing to lead the Heavenly Armament Pavilion into the upper three heavens? Mo Tianji's eyes were a little confused. Brother Chu's purpose of recruiting me should be because you're worried about Diwu Qingro and the Zhuge clan, right? Mo Tianji pondered. In other words, Brother Chu is preparing to be enemies with Diwu Qingro and the Zhuge clan. Mo Tianji deduced. But now, everything is not clear. You haven't even met the Zhuge clan. But you're sure that you're going to be enemies with them. Mo Tianji's eyes flashed. He leaned close to Chu Yang's ear and said softly, Brother Chu, you're the current master of Calamity Sword, right? Chu Yang's face changed. Haha, I didn't say anything. I don't know anything. Mo Tianji spread out his hands and smiled. The two looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Brother Mo, when did you start suspecting? Gu Du Xing and the others have improved by leaps and bounds since they followed you. That's the first reason. Why would Diwu Qingro give up such a good situation and fight with you? That's the second reason. After Diwu Qingro's army was defeated, I once went to the third heaven, provided by the world-defying stage heavens, to observe the celestial phenomena and observe the destiny of my Mo clan. However, I saw a gorgeous blood-colored destiny rushing up to the upper three heavens. Mo Tianji smiled. Don't forget that I once received the true teachings of world controller Xiao Fengyan. Thirdly, I've seen Gu Duxing's sword and Dong Wushang's saber. Fourthly, Xiao Wu's injuries suddenly healed. Mo Tianji faintly smiled. Then his voice became so faint that it couldn't be heard. I'm ignorant and inexperienced. But I know that there's a mysterious existence called Heavy Pill. Fifth, my original plan was to divide the world into 3 parts. But you exterminated the Ming clan first. Then you exterminated the O clan. Then, you deliberately instigated the internal strife of the AO clan. So, you made everything move in the direction of unification after the Great Chaos. You must know that the Sword Master's duty is to conquer. Mo Tianji smiled and said, So Brother Chu, I would have joined the Heavenly Armament Pavilion even if you hadn't used Xiao Wu as a threat. Otherwise, why would I strongly advocate that you should be the leader of the battle of the upper 3 heavens? Don't tell me that I, Mo Tianji, can't be the leader? Since I can devise a strategy in a tent, can't I decide victory from 1,000 miles away? I know the severity of the matter, so I've always kept these things in my heart. I didn't tell anyone about them. Mo Tianji always took the initiative to explain Chu Yang's sensitive doubts. He smiled and said, This may be the only chance for my Mo clan to rush into the upper 3 heavens. Chu Yang was speechless. He thought that he had taken advantage of Mo Tianji, but he didn't know who had fallen into the other's trap. Or, it could be said that both of them had won, because both of them had achieved their goals. Chu Yang had eliminated the biggest obstacle between him and Mo Qingwu. He had eliminated a huge crisis. Moreover, he had cleared the path for him and Mo Qingwu's future. The only thing that made him a little unhappy was that he had such an uncle by his side. He really didn't feel confident. Mo Tianji had also achieved his goals. First, he had made Chu Yang wait for his sister. Second, he had successfully obtained a ticket to enter the upper 3 heavens. Moreover, Chu Yang had forced it on him. Both of them heaved a sigh of relief. However, after Mo Tianji heaved a sigh of relief, he immediately became nervous again, because he knew what kind of path he would embark on in the future, and what kind of enemies he would face. Compared to those enemies, the things that he had painstakingly arranged in the upper 3 heavens were like child's play. Compared to those enemies, the enemies he was facing now were no different from babies who were still learning to speak. Seeing Chu Yang frown, Mo Tianji smiled and said, You don't have to worry. I'm a little scheming, and I like to play tricks. But there's one thing that I believe you can understand. I never play tricks on my own people. He smiled faintly and said, Of course I'm not joking. Mo Tianji was right. What Chu Yang was most worried about now was Mo Tianji's scheming. GMO and the others were fine. But Gu Du Xing and Dong Wushang were not people who liked to joke. They also hated it when others played tricks on them. Hearing Mo Tianji's words, they naturally felt relieved. I want to remind you that this is a path of death. The past sword masters have succeeded, but it doesn't mean that you will succeed. The pressure on this path will be unparalleled. Mo Tianji said softly. So, even if it's our brothers, it's inevitable that some of them will collapse from the pressure. So, on this path, it's necessary to joke and relax appropriately. Otherwise, if we continue to fight fiercely, we will explode from the pressure before the enemies are finished. I understand this point. Chu Yang nodded deeply. It was easier said than done. Right now there was no need to talk about unifying the heavens. Chu Yang and the others were far from being comparable to any of the big clans. Their strength was not even 1,000th of the big clans. The pressure on this path was imaginable. There's no need to think too much. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Mo Tianji said slowly. If you think too much, you'll scare yourself to death. Brother Chu, I'll issue a challenge the day after tomorrow. We'll fight at the Lake of Despair. After issuing the challenge, we should receive a reply within a day. Then, I'll spread the challenge to the world. After that we should set off. We'll meet before the snowy mountain range. We'll set off for the Lake of Despair together. All the clans in the three heavens should participate in this battle. So this battle is very important. Let's conserve our energy for the next few days. We only have 3 days of free time. If you can increase your strength, you'd better make the most of it. The two of them discussed as they walked out of Mo Qingwu's courtyard. Moreover, I'm not joking with you about my younger sister's matter. Mo Tianji solemnly reminded him. Chu Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Now he once again felt the feeling that he had when he was close friends with Mo Tianji in his previous life. That feeling was that Mo Tianji had everything under his control, without leaving any room for error. Having someone like Mo Tianji by his side was a fortunate thing, provided by the world-defying stage heavens. But sometimes it was also a sullen thing, because no matter what it was, before you said it, he would already know, understand, and solve it. Talking to this guy was also boring. Because if he didn't want you to speak, he would say everything himself. Including the questions you wanted to ask, including your confusion, doubts, and so on. When he said a sentence, he would accurately predict what kind of response Ji Kong would give, because of what he said. Then, he would start to explain. In his previous life, Chu Yang had experienced this countless times. He felt that he had chatted with Mo Tianji for an entire afternoon. But after everything was done, he would realize that he hadn't said a single word. It was all someone's one-man show. The second half of today's conversation was basically like this. Chu Yang didn't say a single word. Mo Tianji directly arranged everything and answered all the questions that Chu Yang didn't ask. Chu Yang sat in Mo Tianji's study for a long time before he realized this problem. He couldn't help but spit resentfully. Fuck. I knew it would be so frustrating when I'm old. And now, a certain little lowly, who had made these two amazing talents talk about her, and had almost come to blows, was seriously practicing martial arts somewhere in the upper three heavens. Ning Tianya and Bulu Qing took Mo Qingwu back to the upper three heavens. They were still on the way when the two supreme martial artists had a headache. Masters, can I go and say goodbye to Brother Chu Yang again? The little girl's eyes flickered with tears. I miss him. The two supreme martial artists staggered. Miss him? How long has it been since they separated? And you want to say goodbye again? If you keep saying goodbye like this, I'm afraid you won't be able to reach the upper three heavens in your lifetime. It's okay if you don't say goodbye. Why don't you bring Brother Chu Yang here? The little girl's eyes flickered with longing. The two supreme martial artists were speechless. Yes, why am I so stupid? The little girl clapped her hands. Masters, aren't you worried about finding a disciple? Why don't you accept Brother Chu Yang as your disciple? This is a really good idea. Masters, can we do it? The two supreme martial artists finally collapsed. Anyone would have collapsed after being annoyed for nearly 10,000 miles. Good disciple. It's not that we don't want to. It's just that your brother Chu Yang isn't simple. Ning Tianya explained with a bitter face. We don't dare to be his masters. If we accept him as our disciple, he may be blasted to pieces by heavenly lightning tomorrow. Brother Chu Yang is so powerful? The little girl was in high spirits. Well, if I'm not wrong, your brother Chu Yang will be the most powerful person in the heavens in the future. Bulu Qing said. Wow. The little girl's eyes lit up. Wow. 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 The little girl exclaimed. In other words, Brother Chu Yang will be more powerful than the two masters in the future? The two supreme martial artists rolled their eyes at the same time. Did we say that? Then the two masters together can't beat Brother Chu Yang? Mo Qingwu was in high spirits. The two supreme martial artists' faces darkened. Then why should I worship you as my masters? Can't I learn from Brother Chu Yang? The little girl rolled her eyes and said angrily, Won't you mislead him? The little girl suddenly became bitter. Humph. Ning Tianya and Bulu Qing cried without tears. In the entire heavens for 10,000 years, someone had dared to say that the two supreme martial artists would mislead him. It seemed that someone had finally appeared today. Chapter 642. The two supreme martial artists had no choice but to explain the problem of misleading the younger brother first. Cough cough. Your brother Chu Yang may be very powerful in the future, but he's nothing now. Ning Tianya explained gloomily. It'll take hundreds of years for him to grow up. It's still too early. Mo Qing Wu snorted, but her face was still gloomy. Besides, since your brother Chu Yang will be so powerful in the future, you won't be able to catch up with him if you don't work hard. How can you be worthy of your brother Chu Yang if you can't catch up with him and can't be as good as him? Lu Qing's words were more important in comparison. Moreover, they were straight to the point. Well, I'll work hard. Lu Qing looked at Ning Tianya proudly. His meaning was, see, my method is still effective. Back at Ning Tianya's residence, Ning Tianya didn't have time to rest. He started to prepare to teach his disciple. Of course, he didn't want to build a good relationship with her. Little Wu, look at this. Is it fun? Like this. Master, why haven't you started to practice? This thing, doesn't it look good to you? Okay, but this thing can't let me catch up with brother Chu Yang. The expected scene of the two masters begging the little girl to practice didn't happen at all. Instead, the little girl urged the two masters to start. This good start made the two supreme martial artists very happy. So Ning Tianya started teaching immediately. 2 days later, the little girl was somewhat thin and tired. Again. 2 days later, the little girl was somewhat powerless. Again. 3 days later. Boo-hoo. I miss brother Chu Yang. The little girl couldn't take it anymore. Ning Tianya felt a big headache. My whole body is sore. The little girl's eyes were brimming with tears. Ning Tianya looked up and sighed. However, there was one thing that made the two supreme martial artists the happiest. The little girl's aptitude was superb. Her physical strength was good, but her wisdom was incomparable. The little girl could basically memorize some theoretical things, or chant that needed to be recited. Therefore, it could be said that she spent very little time in this aspect. However, the little girl's physical strength couldn't support it. Therefore, the most difficult part became practice. How about I give you a massage every day? There was no other way. Ning Tianya volunteered himself. He was a dignified supreme martial artist. No. The little lowly's eyes were brimming with tears, but she firmly refused. Although you are my master, you are also a man. I won't allow you to touch my body. This is brother Chu Yang's. Utinya burst into tears. When had a dignified supreme martial artist ever given anyone a massage? Now that he had taken the initiative to bring it up, he was actually embarrassed on the spot. Being snubbed for his warm face, that was the kind of depressing feeling that all his internal organs were burning. I'm already fucking over 10,000 years old. How could I possibly be lustful toward a little girl like you? Lu Qing had been watching Ning Tianya teach his disciple with cold eyes. His mouth hadn't closed since. His disciple's aptitude had made him smile with satisfaction. His disciple's cuteness had made him smile with doting love. His disciple's intelligence had made him smile with gratification. Of course, his disciple's mischievousness had made him smile with schadenfreude even more. Having been rejected, Ning Tianya went out with a black face. Therefore, on that night, Yi Meili, the chief masseuse of the Yi clan, who was one of the dominant clans of the Chongtian continent, disappeared. The little girl was practicing her martial arts under the frowning gaze of the two masters. Then, she was groaning and lying on the jade essence bed, enjoying the massage under the speechless gaze of the two masters. Today was a day of contentment. Moreover, the most pleasant thing was that Lu Qing had thought of a way. He had made a few holes in the huge jade essence bed that had been formed for 100,000 years. Then he had placed purple crystal jade essence pearl, white crystal jade essence pearl, blue crystal jade essence pearl, and deep sea crystal jade essence pearl in the holes. Then, he had used his supreme martial artist cultivation to open up a channel for the circulation of vital energy between these rare treasures, forming an array. As long as this jade essence bed was placed here, the surrounding spiritual energy would be automatically attracted by the array. Then it would be injected into these rare treasures and become circulating energy. This jade essence bed had become today's spiritual energy supply platform. As long as Mo Qing Wu was lying on top of it, even if she did nothing but sleep, these rare heaven and earth energies would spontaneously gather together and be channeled into Mo Qing Wu's dantian. Then, they would spontaneously circulate through the little lowly's meridians. Moreover, they would tirelessly wash away the impurities in the little girl's body. This kind of cultivation method was simply whimsical. After this method was successful, this jade essence bed was carried out of Ning Tianye's room and placed in the little girl's boudoir. From then on, it became Mo Qing Wu's exclusive use. When it was carried in, the little girl pouted as if she had suffered a lot of grievances. She used clean water to carefully wipe this jade essence bed. Then she moved her little nose and sniffed left and right. Then she frowned and reluctantly accepted it. Humph, Master Ning hasn't taken a bath since I came here. Letting me sleep in the bed that he slept in is obviously bullying me. Humph. I'll wash it again. The little girl pouted and felt extremely wronged. She felt that she had been abused. There wasn't even a bed made specially for her. What supreme martial artist? He's so poor. The two supreme martial artists spat out blood on the spot. Poor? Who dares to say that we're poor? Look at this jade essence bed in the entire heavenly layer. Besides me, who else can take out this jade essence bed? Just casually take out a pearl from it, and the entire heavenly layer will be turned upside down. So many top-grade treasures in the world were transformed by the two supreme martial artists. They spend a lot of energy to create the first cultivation aid treasure since ancient times. But it turned out to be trash? Sigh, trash is trash. As long as my precious disciple sleeps on it. The two supreme martial artists were speechless. They could only weep. The following days were even more miserable. The little girl was very focused on her cultivation. She was also very serious and very bitter. Her progress was very fast. Because the little girl's heart was filled with energy. I want to quickly become strong. I want to go and protect Brother Chu Yang. I want to learn quickly. Once I learn everything, I can go down and find Brother Chu Yang. With such a mentality, after getting through the discomfort of the first few days, she was naturally diligent to the point that the two supreme martial artists couldn't bear it. However, there was a problem that came out of Chu Paoli. She wanted to listen to stories before sleeping. How could the two supreme martial artists bear to disappoint their precious disciple? So the two supreme martial artists took turns to tell stories. A long time ago, in ancient times, say, after a few months, the two supreme martial artists' bellies were hollowed out. Facing the little girl's sad eyes every night, the two supreme martial artists wanted to bang their heads against the wall. Did they take in a disciple? And they even invited a granny. What was worse was that Mo Qing Wu always shook her head after listening to the stories. It's not as good as Brother Chu Yang's. Then, she would hold her cheeks with both hands and miss. Brother Chu Yang, I miss you so much. The accumulation of this period of time made the two supreme martial artists form a strong resentment or a conditioned reflex. Hearing the name Brother Chu Yang, the two supreme martial artists would start to have a headache. The two supreme martial artists would gnash their teeth in private. The next time I see that little Chu Yang, I swear I won't be human if I don't teach him a lesson. Look at you, bastard. Spoil my disciple so much, of course. Complaints are just complaints. Mo Qing Wu's cultivation is progressing step by step. Moreover, it's advancing at a speed of 1,000 miles per day. In the beginning, the two supreme martial artists still had a competitive spirit. But later it gradually faded. What's the point of competing for a disciple? Maybe one day, the two supreme martial artists couldn't pass the final hurdle. There was only one common disciple in the world. What's the point of competing? Well, looking at this, the little girl's cultivation is much faster than the two of us at that time. After a few years, she may be able to go out to the Jianghu to gain experience occasionally. When the two supreme martial artists sat opposite each other and drank, they were also quite depressed. If this trend continues, our disciple will inevitably be taken advantage of by that beast Chu Yang. Thinking of this, the two supreme martial artists wanted to simply go down and castrate that little girl right now. The two supreme martial artists of the upper three heavens didn't care about what was happening outside. They only wanted to teach their disciple. After 3 days of turbulence, the storm finally came to an end. More than a dozen clans started to take action at the same time. They intersected and attacked each other. Later, the loss of the city gate affected the fish in the moat. Those clans who were wise to protect themselves were also implicated. The number of deaths every day exceeded 4 digits. The number of shops closing every day exceeded 3 digits. The number of shops changing hands every day exceeded 3 digits. On the 3rd day, the conflict had escalated. All the major clans had brought out their absolute martial strength and fought with each other. In the end, as long as they saw people wearing different clothes on the streets, they would go up and start a fight. On the 3rd day, the number of casualties exceeded 10,000. Those Jianghu people who walked alone were considered unlucky. If they didn't find a backer, they would be like rats crossing the street. Who cared if they were innocent or not? The Mo clan was the first to raise the banner of seeking justice for the people of Jianghu, protecting the safety of the people of Jianghu. Immediately, those Jianghu people who were frightened and worried about their own safety flooded into the clan. On the 4th day, the situation was even more out of control. Almost all the businesses of the European Union's clans were paralyzed. All their sources of income were cut off. They anxiously vented everywhere. At this time, Mo Tianji sent out a letter of challenge. The tactic was very simple. Fight to determine the winner. Fight to determine the heavens. On the 10th day of the 10th month, do you dare to fight me? Tian Buhui was furious. He replied on the spot. If you want to fight, I will fight. Fight to change the heaven and earth. Fight to determine the heavens. Immediately, Mo Tianlong issued a crusade to the entire Jianghu. With the Mo clan as the leader, the few clans stood at the peak of morality. They looked down from above and ruthlessly killed the clans of the European Union with the sword of justice. At the same time, the Ao clan announced that they would join the battle. They had no choice but to join the battle. After this battle, the winner would probably sweep the entire Jianghu. Their reputation would far surpass that of the Ao clan. If the Ao clan didn't make a move, they wouldn't be able to catch up even if they ate shit. On the same day, when it was close to dusk, 2 pieces of news spread throughout the 3 heavens. The 3 heavens, which were already in a mess, were in an uproar again. To be continued. Chapter 643. These 2 pieces of news came one after the other. Chu Yang and Mo Tianji were stunned when they heard the first piece of news. Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang had joined forces to defeat the 2 brothers of Ao clan, Ao Qingyan and Ao Fengyan. Ao Qingyan's heart had been pierced by Gu Duxing's sword, and Ao Fengyan had been cleaved into 2 halves by Dong Wushang's saber. Mo Tianji cried out when he saw this news. Don't you think that these 2 brothers are too fierce? How did they kill those 2 brothers? Those were 2 great geniuses. Chu Yang spat on the ground and said, Brother Mo, why do you resent the word genius so much? An individual is a genius in martial arts. But it doesn't mean that he's also an all-around genius, who is good at war and outstanding in scheming. Every genius must have another aspect. That is an idiot. Chu Yang deeply said, In my opinion, these 2 geniuses of the Ao clan may be idiots in the brain. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been so blinded by ambition. Mo Tianji laughed out loud. Then he frowned. But killing them at this time isn't a good thing even if they are idiots. Chu Yang snorted. It's not necessarily a bad thing. The 2 men looked at each other. Then, they evaluated each other in their hearts. Mo Tianji and Chu Yang were completely different in this matter. Mo Tianji was a roundabout person. I can't kill him now. It's better to kill him after I've finished using him. Won't I have to vent my anger sooner or later? Don't you know that it's never too late to take revenge? Chu Yang is a hardliner. I'll kill you if you dare to provoke me. It doesn't matter why I killed them. What Gu Duxing and the others did was right. So, what's the big deal about killing them? Naturally, the two of them didn't understand the reason. It was said that the two great dukes of the Ao clan had arrived at the Gu clan that day. They had sent an invitation and had entered the clan. They had been a little overbearing at first, but they had still been polite. But they had come to the Gu clan to ask for their surrender. Gu Duxing had exploded. I'm happy. I'm satisfied. My life is at its best. Why are you here to mess things up? Gu Duxing had sternly refused and drove the two out. The next day, the two elders continued to be relentless. They analyzed the situation, tried to reason with him, and tried to move him with emotion. In short, they said, your Gu clan will be finished in this 3-day storm. So, you should take refuge in my Ao clan as soon as possible. Gu Duxing ignored him. These two idiots were simply making people spit out rice. Do you know who this duke is? On the 3rd day, Gu Duxing couldn't take it anymore. That was because Ao Feng Yun had mentioned Gu Miaoling during their conversation. He had earnestly said that Gu Miaoling's fate would be like if the Gu clan were to be exterminated. And only Ao clan could provide her with a protective umbrella and so on. But before he could finish, Gu Duxing flew into a rage and rushed out to fight. The two great clans immediately became entangled in a fight. Both sides suffered losses. Although both sides held back and no one lost their lives, there were still many who were injured. This time the two proud men were furious. Ao clan had dominated the 3 heavens for 3 days. Had the grassroots ever received such provocation? Then, he cursed loudly, and declared that he would exterminate the Gu clan. Gu Duxing couldn't bear it any longer. So he finally hardened his heart, and went out to fight. Coincidentally, Second Master Dong arrived at this time. Dong Wuxiang rushed over at full speed. He was still a few miles away when he heard the cursing voices of the Ao clan. He was unable to restrain his anger. He dashed over like a meteor, and slashed Ao Feng Yun into 2 halves with a schwa sound. Ao Feng Yun was the one who had been making the most noise. The 2 brothers of the Ao clan were geniuses in martial arts. But geniuses and geniuses were different. Especially, they couldn't be compared with abnormal geniuses like Dong Wuxiang and Gu Duxing. Ao Feng Yun had lost his life in this move. Everyone of the Ao clan was furious. They surrounded Dong Wuxiang one after another. They wanted to dismember this man, who had killed their duke into 10,000 pieces. Gu Duxing also rushed out at this time. He took advantage of the fact that all the experts of the Ao clan were besieging Dong Wuxiang. So he attacked with his sword. This went even more smoothly. The sword light flashed, and the other Duke Ao Qingyun's soul also went to hell. Gu Duxing and Dong Wuxiang weren't timid people, so they launched an all-out counterattack. The 2 brothers, Sword Emperor and Saber Emperor, went on a killing spree in the crowd of the Ao clan. They were shouting and fighting fiercely. Everyone of the Gu clan also rushed out and beat them while they were down. Only 3 high-end emperor-level experts of the Ao clan managed to escape with their lives. The others were buried in front of the Gu clan's gate. The curtains had already been drawn by the time Dong Wulei arrived with his people. It was said that young Master Dong Wulei cried on the spot. My 2 fathers, you killed 2 of the Ao clan's dukes at such a critical moment. Motherfucker, do you want to die faster? Gu Duxing and Dong Wuxiang expressed the same opinion regarding Dong Wulei's misgivings. Ao clan, what is it? Dong Wulei was left speechless in the face of these 2 daring guys. Gu Duxing dispersed the clansmen of the Gu clan on that day, in order to avoid the retaliation of the Ao clan. Then, he led the army to merge with Dong Wulei and his brothers, and set out for the location of the decisive battle. Dong Wulei was extremely melancholy on the way. He was constantly sighing. This was the first piece of news. Chu Yang and Mo Tianji heard the second piece of news. Chu Yang went berserk on the spot. Mo Tianji had good self-restraint, but he also slammed the table on the spot. The second piece of news was much more explosive than the first piece of news. The remaining 4 dukes of the Ao clan suddenly merged. They contacted a 1,000-man team and attacked the Xie clan at lightning speed. That was because they had obtained accurate information. Ao Xie Yun was in the Xie clan. Everyone would have a chance if they killed Ao Xie Yun. Even if the clan blamed them, the dead couldn't come back to life. Therefore, the 4 dukes discussed for a moment and decided to attack the Xie clan. It was said that the battle had shaken the heaven and earth. The Xie clan had been caught off guard. Half of the sky had been burned red. 8th grade emperor-level experts of the Ao clan had entangled the ancestor of the Xie clan, Xie Zhiqiu. The others had also wantonly destroyed everything. Xie Danxiong had just returned to the clan and had been besieged by 2 emperor-level experts. He had been seriously injured. Xie Danfeng had also been seriously injured. Rui Butong had also been severely injured. Tan Tan had barely managed to protect everyone as they rushed out. Ao Xie Yin had been the main target, but his injuries had become even more serious in order to save Rui Butong's life. Xie Zhiqiu and several emperor-level experts of the Xie clan had risked their lives to lead everyone to break out of the encirclement. They were currently fleeing towards this place, and the army of the Ao clan was relentlessly chasing after them. And the foundation of the Xie clan that had been established for hundreds of years had been destroyed. Chu Yang stood up when the news had reached him. Mo Tianji didn't wait for Chu Yang to speak. He slammed the table and issued an order. All personnel who will participate in the battle, set out immediately. Travel through the night and night. We must succeed in providing support before the Ao clan catches up with the Xie clan. All intelligence personnel must ensure the safety of the people of the Xie clan at all costs from now on. Even if they die, they must be protected. Their family members will be compensated 100-fold in case of misfortune. Chu Yang and Mo Tianji impatiently rushed out of the gate of the Mo clan, while the invisible falcon flew out. You take everyone and leave quickly. I'll go first. Chu Yang mounted his horse and left behind these words. His last words had echoed from hundreds of feet away. Chu Yang and his horse disappeared into the twilight as soon as he finished speaking. Mo Tianji's complexion was as calm as water. He waved his hand, and the troops continued to move forward. It seemed as if his heart had been set on fire at this moment. It was burning his internal organs and making him feel uncomfortable. This news had thrown Mo Tianji into a panic. There are people in the world who don't care about the overall situation. Mo Tianji finally couldn't help but vent his anger. Is the Ao clan more important than the entire Jianghu? These geniuses of the Ao clan are extremely disgraceful. Mo Tianji's plan would be in danger of collapsing if the Xie clan suffered too heavy a loss this time, and they would be in danger of losing this battle of 3 days. They had painstakingly schemed against Tianbu Hui's group, but they had made a wedding dress for them. How could Mo Tianji not be angry? This was related to the life and death of more than a dozen great clans. And this included the Mo clan. Clan Lord, this matter, perhaps we didn't consider it enough. An elder of the Mo clan stroked his beard and said in a deep voice, the Ao clan has been standing proudly for 3 days. It has been 1,000 years. For these elders, the Ao clan is like a towering tree. They will have hope if they kill Ao Xie Yin. Then, no matter what happens to the Ao clan, as long as they can keep their position, their lives will be saved. They don't think about the overall situation of the world. After all, in their eyes, the battle for the world between the 2 great groups is just a joke. Moreover, they only need to watch with folded arms. If they can't do it, they can settle down. But the Ao clan has already announced their participation in the battle. Mo Tianji said fiercely. Ao Tianxing said this himself this morning. That's why they took the risk. The elder of the Mo clan said. It's still not right. Mo Tianji gritted his teeth. They shouldn't have the guts to attack the Xie clan in 3 days. They don't have the strength to do so. There must be something fishy about this. The Xie clan is stronger than my Mo clan. They aren't any weaker than the Dong clan. They want to attack the Xie clan in 3 days with just a few debauchee geniuses? This is a big joke. Mo Tianji said heavily. This is absolutely impossible. Then he frowned. The Ao clan has announced their participation in the battle, so they certainly won't have the assistance of the experts of the Ao clan. It can only be those 4 men and their entourage of experts. According to reliable sources, each of those 4 men has brought no more than 150 people. So the total number is at most 100 people. But the information says that there are more than 1,000 people. The information can't be wrong. So where did the extra 400 people come from? Mo Tianji frowned. He let his horse gallop forward. He was constantly thinking and speculating in the wind. Suddenly, a light flashed in his mind. Could it be that the reinforcements of Tian Bu Hui's group have finally arrived? But how did their reinforcements get involved with the Ao clan? If it's not them, then who is it? To be continued. Chapter 644. Second young Master Tan had been flushed with success these days. He had said that he would return to the Ji clan, after he had parted ways with his brothers in the Xie clan. However, he had actually gone to Huyan Aobua's clan. With Ji Zhu in the Ji clan, he was the backbone of the Ji clan. Why would I go back? Second Master Ji wouldn't be able to be free and easy if that bastard Ji Zhu took me as a long-term worker. Therefore, GMO twisted his buttocks and turned around. The road went smoothly after he had turned around. He didn't encounter any obstacles. This is fucking strange. All the people who had tried to intercept him had been on the way back to the Ji clan. However, the Huyan clan was the opposite of the Ji clan. In fact, it had nothing to do with the Ji clan. Therefore, he had left those people behind. He had pounced on empty air. Second Master Ji rubbed his crotch in high spirits. His eyes were filled with longing as he entered the Huyan clan's territory. It was already late in the evening when the lanterns were lit. Second Master Ji found a restaurant and went up to eat and drink to his heart's content. He had barely sat down and started to eat when he heard the sound of majestic footsteps coming up the stairs. Then the door opened, and GMO felt darkness in front of him. He saw a tall and sturdy man standing at the entrance of his private room. He was 8 feet tall. He had a stocky back and a bear's waist. He looked majestic and murderous. It could be said that a man could hold the pass against 10,000 men. This was the innate imposing manner of a hero. It was a mighty and tyrannical aura. GMO exclaimed in admiration. Then he suddenly felt that something was wrong. He felt that this man's chest muscles were too developed. His buttocks were also too perky. He took a closer look and realized that it was his fiancée, Huyan Aobua. Aobua! GMO shouted. He jumped up like a monkey. He was unable to contain his joy as he said, "Why have you come? You've come to my home. How can I not know?" Huyan Aobua walked in with a majestic gait. She stretched out her hand and pulled out a chair. Then she sat down on it. The chair creaked as she sat on it. She was like a lofty mountain. Ha ha ha. GMO laughed foolishly. He thought, this is too powerful. This is too satisfying. This gives me a sense of security. Aobua, I missed you so much. Second Master Ji threw a coquettish glance at her and asked, "Did you miss me?" Huyan Aobo furrowed her brows as a faint blush slowly rose on her face. She bit her lips and snorted, but did not say anything. "Waiter, bring another pair of chopsticks." "Oh, I'll go get it myself." GMO rushed out with a whooshing sound. Then he returned with a whooshing sound. He held a pair of chopsticks in his hand and said, "Here, Aobua. This is our fate." He stretched out his hand, and Huyan Aobo stretched out her hand to receive it. Their arms were almost side by side. One arm was thick and strong, while the other was thin and weak. It was as if an arm and a leg were placed together. A GMO's arm. Then GMO sat down beside Huyan Aobo with a drooling face. There was a golden monkey sitting next to a black bear. To think that you still have some conscience. You actually knew to be the first to come and find me. Huyan Aobo said faintly, but there was a trace of satisfaction in her tone. You are my wife. If I don't look for you, who else should I look for? GMO attentively picked up a piece of beef and placed it on Huyan Aobo's plate. Humph. After the meal, the two of them talked about everything. Huyan Aobo was also a bold woman. She was not pretentious. GMO was even more casual. While walking, GMO boldly held Huyan Aobo's arm. Huyan Aobo turned her head and looked at him. She said, "It's not very elegant." GMO hung on Huyan Aobo's arm. He twisted his neck and said, "What's not elegant about it? I'm just taking my wife shopping." The image is reversed. If it's reversed, then it's reversed. What's the matter? Second Master Ji did not care. Huyan Aobo had some misgivings. She thought for a while and smiled. We live our own lives and reap our own happiness. Why should we care about what other people think? They can look at us however they like. GMO seemed to be out of tune. In fact, he was sacrificing himself and paying the price of being ridiculed by others to dispel the misgivings in his heart. Huyaneo sighed. She pulled her hand out and held GMO's arm. They were holding each other's arm. But a man holding a woman's arm and a woman holding a man's arm were two different things. GMO raised his head in surprise. He saw Huyaneo's calm, smiling eyes. He couldn't help but feel moved. He smiled knowingly. The two of them swaggered through the city arm in arm. They were calm and composed. And they left behind a flabbergasted gaze. The guards of the Huyan clan also found it funny at first. But they felt that these two people were willing to sacrifice themselves for each other. And they took the initiative to become a laughingstock. And the other took the initiative to resolve it. So they were very harmonious. Both of them were tall and short. They were tall and sturdy. And they were thin and weak. But they were walking in a harmonious and natural manner. They were walking in a harmonious manner. And they were walking in a harmonious manner. But the feeling they gave people was slowly changing from funny to respectful. Would I summon up courage like GMO, if I were in GMO's shoes because of the unharmonious pairing between the man and the woman? Would I dare to do so if I were in his shoes? Everyone was asking themselves this question, but there was no answer. However, there was one thing that was certain. You can only let your happiness slip away from you if you don't have such courage. And you can't say that you regret it when you regret it in the future. You don't even have the qualifications to say that you regret it, because happiness was in your hands at that time. And you give up on it. Therefore, you don't even have the qualifications to say that you regret it. Love doesn't need a reason. And it doesn't need a sense of inferiority. Don't talk about GMO's era. How many people would dare to do such a thing even in our modern times? I really want to say that you don't deserve to love her, when I see some men asking their girlfriends not to wear high heels, because they are short, and their girlfriends are tall. You don't deserve to love her, because your heart is shorter than your body. GMO received a hero's welcome when he arrived at the Huyan clan's courtyard. Huyan clan's clan lord Huyan Tianfeng slapped the table. This GMO is a hero. He deserves to be my son-in-law. Huyan Tianfeng immediately set out to see the man his daughter had fallen in love with since he had heard that GMO had arrived. Huyan clan's clan lord's eyes became moist when he saw his daughter and GMO walking hand in hand on the street. He was a man. He obviously knew what men cared about the most. With these two people fighting, it was almost as if the one making a fool of himself was a man. But GMO didn't care at all. Huyan Tianfeng felt that he couldn't do it if he had been in GMO's place. It wasn't easy for GMO to do this. This was a man's responsibility. This was a man's style. Huyan Tianfeng knew that his daughter wasn't ugly. She was clever and skillful. She had a big chest. So, it wasn't wrong to say that she was a great woman's husband. But she had a big frame. And she had the appearance of a man. She had high standards. But she didn't meet the standards of men when it came to choosing a spouse. Huyaneo was proud and arrogant. But she had already accepted her fate. Otherwise, how could a man like Gao Xing be worthy of this heroine? Perhaps, Gao Xing hadn't fled the marriage. Instead, Huyaneo had expressed her unwillingness. His daughter had met GMO now. So, he had put down a big load in his heart. They had already eaten dinner that night. But, the Huyan clan still held a big banquet to drink with their future son-in-law. The more Huyan Tianfeng looked at his son-in-law, the more satisfied he was with him. The father-son-in-law and his son-in-law crowded around the table and drank to their heart's content. GMO was somewhat restrained at first, but he drank the wine later on. GMO was thin and weak, but his capacity for liquor wasn't careless. Moreover, this was the first time he had visited the Huyan clan. So he couldn't show any weakness. So, he drank to his father-in-law's satisfaction. They drank until the middle of the night. Cups and plates were in a mess. Huyan Tianfeng couldn't handle the alcohol. So he got ready to slip away. GMO got drunk later on. In fact, he drank to his heart's content. He saw that his father-in-law had the intention to act shamelessly. So he slapped the table, stood up and shouted valiantly. Then he pinched his father-in-law's nose and poured the wine down his throat. Everyone was dumbstruck. It seemed as if they had seen a celestial being. The Huyan clan's lord drank the wine down his throat. Then he turned over and drilled under the adjacent table. Jimo's hairy son-in-law also picked up the wine and sang 2 lines of a small song. Then he gulped it down with a gulp sound. Then he started to giggle foolishly. He circled the table and finally fell down with a plop sound. And he fell on his father-in-law's body. The next moment, the hairy son-in-law held his father-in-law in his arms. Both of them were snoring loudly. Everyone in the Huyan clan was dumbstruck. Huyan Aobo and her mother hurriedly came out to take a look. And they saw their son-in-law lying under the table with his father-in-law in his arms. There was a satisfied look on his face. The mother and daughter didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They hastily ordered people to separate the 2 of them. But both of them were drunk. So they were hugging each other tightly. So they had no choice but to lift them up and throw them into the guest room. The next morning, 2 screams were heard from the guest room. These screams almost pierced the blue dome of heaven. Then, the 2 of them smashed 2 holes in the guest room with a bang and rushed out. Then, the Huyan clan's lord covered his face and ran away in shame. His illustrious reputation had gone down the drain. Only the second Master Ji was left standing in the courtyard foolishly. He held his head in his hands and tried his best to recall what had happened last night. Second Master Ji had become famous in his father-in-law's family since then. In fact, the old ancestor of the Huyan clan had deliberately ended his closed-door training and had come out to take a look at this hairy son-in-law who had hugged his father-in-law to sleep through the night. This is a freak who has seized the good fortune of the world. Madame Huyan saw her son-in-law the next day. She saw him looking for his father-in-law everywhere. And he found him in the inner hall. The Huyan clan's lord had been hiding in the madame's room. And this guy had found him red-handed. Father-in-law, you didn't do anything to me last night, right? Jimo's face was sullen. He was very nervous. He wanted to get to the bottom of this and wanted to find out the truth. Get lost. The Huyan clan's lord roared in anger. Then, he ferociously kicked GMO. Madame Huyan hadn't seen her son-in-law's appearance clearly. But this guy had already let out a strange cry and had been kicked away by her husband. And he had turned into a meteor. To be continued. Chapter 645. GMO stayed in the Huyanhong clan. Naturally, this guy wanted to offer his virginity as soon as possible. But how could this be possible? The Huyan clan was also a big clan. He hadn't even gotten married yet. But he wanted to abduct the little watermark of departure into his bed? What a scandal. Huyan Aobo also guarded the last hurdle. She wouldn't let this guy break through. GMO had tried many times. He had done everything except for the last hurdle. But the last hurdle was as impregnable as iron. Later, second Master Ji hardened his heart. Damn it. How can I succeed if I don't pay a price? Therefore, he raised his head and drank the bottle of Lust Dragon's blood that he had asked for from Chu Yang before he left. Then, he circulated his martial power until his blood vessels expanded. His whole body became hot. Then he ran to look for Huyan Aobo. Aobo, it's not good. I took an aphrodisiac. GMO said in a panic. You took an aphrodisiac in my house? Huyan Aobo looked at him strangely. How could she not know what this guy was thinking? Yes. And it's the most serious type of Lust Dragon's blood. Aobo, save me. Second Master Ji cried out. His face had turned red. Guards! Huyan Aobo shouted. A few guards came over. Take Second Master Ji to the guest room. No one is allowed to go in or out without my permission. Huyan Aobo's face was red. She leaned close to Jimo's ear. You took an aphrodisiac? Lust Dragon's blood? Fine, stay in the guest room. Jimo's hands and feet suddenly became ice cold. No. Aobo, my dear. Oh my god. You can't be right? Woo. GMO cried. Second Master Ji looked at Huyan Aobo leaving angrily. He wanted to commit suicide. GMO shouldn't have said that this was Lust Dragon's blood. Even if he had said that it was an ordinary aphrodisiac, it would have succeeded. But Huyan Aobo knew that Lust Dragon's blood wasn't an aphrodisiac. It only had an aphrodisiac effect for men. Although it could make the watermark of departure uncontrollable, it was beneficial and harmless. It would be better to let this guy hold it in for a few days. GMO tried to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. He was locked up in a small dark room. He was locked up for 3 whole days. 3 days later, Second Master G was finally done. He was out. However, she discovered that she had become extremely sensitive. Whenever she saw a piece of pink clothing, she would immediately stand up. And this weirdo had finally become a celebrity of the Huyan clan. He had taken an aphrodisiac in order to take advantage of her. When this news spread out from the mouths of those guards, Second Master G's name instantly spread far and wide. Of course, the most praiseworthy thing was that he had a thick face that could not be broken by an army of 1,000,000. If it was someone else, they would have been too ashamed to show their face. However, this guy was completely shameless. When someone else mentioned it, he was the first to be happy. Moreover, he was proud of it. The Huyan clan's patriarch sighed incessantly. I finally see it clearly. This son-in-law of mine isn't a man who can take responsibility. He's purely a super shameless person. On this evening, GMO was sitting together with Huyan Aobua and talking when suddenly, a piece of news came. The clan lord said, "This news must be shown to the son-in-law as soon as possible." The guard held the report and stammered. What news? GMO received it with great interest. He only took a glance at it. GMO suddenly exploded with rage. Bastard! Bastard AO clan! I will swallow you all alive if my brother suffers even the slightest mishap. Then Second Master G crazily rushed out. Huyan Aobua panted as she chased after him. But Second Master G had already rushed out on a horse like a whirlwind. His eyes were red. His legs were fiercely clamping the horse's abdomen. He brandished the horsewhip and rushed out without stopping. Hey, wait for me! Huyan Aobua shouted. What are you waiting for? Don't meddle in the affairs of men. Jimo's voice came. A man and a horse rushed out like lightning and disappeared into the curtain of the night. The sound of horses' hooves rolled away like muffled thunder. What happened? Huyan Aobua grabbed the guard and asked. The 4 elders of the AO clan launched a surprise attack on the Xie clan. The Xie clan suffered heavy casualties. The main figures fled for their lives, including the son-in-law's brother. The guard replied while trembling with fear. Huyan Aobua cried out in alarm. She turned around and went to the Huyan clan's hall. I want to go, Huyan Aobua bluntly said to her father. Has he already left? Huyan Tianfeng asked. Yes, he's worthy of being called a hot-blooded man. He can immediately abandon his tender home and throw himself into the danger of his brother without the slightest hesitation. Huyan Tianfeng muttered to himself. Then he said, You're not the only one who wants to go. Our Huyan clan also wants to go. He resolutely ordered. Our Huyan clan can't stay out of this chaos in the Jianghu. All the personnel are ready, so we'll set out ahead of time, since the outbreak has occurred ahead of time. GMO is standing on that side. We'll stand on that side. Set out. Several hundred people of the Huyan clan rushed out of the Huyan clan's residence, under the leadership of the father and daughter after a short while. They then disappeared into the curtain of night. Madame Huyan knelt down in front of the Buddha statue in the manor. She then piously kowtowed. May the heaven bless my husband and daughter. May they return safely. Smoke rose in spirals. Chu Yang galloped like an arrow from a bow. His black clothes and black robe fluttered in the night wind and issued bang 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 sounds. His eyes were as sharp as swords. They were emitting a ruthless divine light. He tightly pursed his lips and suppressed the emotions in his chest. It seemed as if they were about to explode. However, the corners of his lips were slightly bent, and a trace of heart-palpitating cruelty could be seen in them. The tribulation sword in Chu Yang's dantian seemed to have been infected by the murderous aura in his heart. It had unconsciously gathered together in his dantian and issued a clanging sword cry. Then, an invisible sword energy emitted from Chu Yang's body. Even Chu Yang himself hadn't noticed that the clouds in the sky had been smashed to pieces by the sword energy. Chu Yang and his horse had turned into a black lightning in the dim light of the night. Like a hurricane. Brother, I'm coming. If you guys are hurt in the slightest, Chu Yang, We'll slaughter for 3 days. Dozens of miles behind him, Mo Tianji's elegant and calm face was solemn. He just kept on giving orders. Quick! A little faster. Throw away everything that hinders our speed. Right now we only need speed. The large group of people and horses moved forward quickly in silence. The sound of horse hooves was like a landslide and a tsunami. They trampled on the darkness of the night. Jimo's body was crouched on the horse, and he rushed forward. The night wind fiercely hit his face, but his eyes were wide open, and he didn't even blink. The anger in his whole body was rising. With every passing moment, his anger increased by a little bit. Right now, he felt as if there was boiling lava in his heart. He was anxious. My brothers, are you okay? You have to hold on. You have to hold on. IGMO am coming. Quick. 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 On the main road, Dong Wushang and Gu Duxing left the group like meteors. They anxiously rode forward like a hurricane. Their eyes were bloodshot. The tyrannical murderous aura from their bodies had almost condensed into substance. The fury of the Sword Emperor and the Saber Emperor had filled the entire world. All the passers-by who were carrying sabers and swords along the way found that the sabers and swords on their waists had automatically left their sheaths after these two men had passed by at a high speed. Cold light flashed. The troops of the Gu clan and the Dong clan were far behind them. They had doubled their speed under the urging of Dong Wulei. They had rushed forward without any hesitation. The two men and two horses were like tornadoes. They were roaring all the way as they rushed to the horizon. The complexions of these two men were like iron. They had the same hope in their hearts. Brother, you have to hold on. We're coming. The matter of the surprise attack on the Xie clan was being discussed in a restaurant in a small town. Everyone was talking about this sudden and violent news with great relish. The complexion of a youth whose entire body was covered with injuries suddenly changed after he heard this. He stood up with a schwa sound and threw down a piece of silver. Then he rushed down the restaurant like a gust of wind. He waved his hand and knocked down a middle-aged man from his horse's back. Then, he turned over and mounted his horse. He threw down a piece of gold without turning his head. Then he clamped his legs and rushed out. That middle-aged man fell behind him, and his face was covered with dirt. He started to curse loudly. However, that youth turned a deaf ear to him. He had already gone far away. This youth was Luo Kadi. Second young master Luo's luck wasn't good. He had been attacked twice in a row. He had been seriously injured each time. But he had been lucky enough to escape. He had already consumed the incomplete version of the heavy pill after his first encounter with the ambush. So he had no choice but to endure the second attack. He had been hiding here to heal his injuries. So he hadn't fully recovered yet. When he heard this news, he felt as if his chest was about to explode. He didn't even think about it before rushing out. My brother has been attacked. I want to go. Luo Kudi's body was riddled with scars. There were still countless wounds that hadn't healed. Blood was constantly seeping out. However, he didn't even blink. He didn't feel any pain at the moment. This second young master Luo had always been laughing and cursing. However, even when he had been attacked and his life was in danger, he had still been laughing and cursing. Even when facing a strong enemy, he had still been able to talk and laugh freely. However, his complexion had become unprecedentedly serious at this moment. An urgency. Brother. Nothing must happen to him. Absolutely, absolutely. In another direction, Luo Kowu was leading the army. He suddenly crushed the information in his hand. Then he gave a thunderous order. Cancel the camping plan. Advance at full speed. The Luo clan had moved. In another direction, the young clan lord of the Ji clan Jiju had suddenly rushed out of his comfortable carriage after he had received the news. He kicked the carriage away from the troops, and the road became empty. Then he quickly mounted his horse and roared, "Advance at full speed!" This Grand Duke Ji had always been someone who would never stand if he could sit. He would never stand if he could lie down. However, this was the first time in his life that he had made such a move. In a certain place, Jun Lulu had finished reading the information in her hand. She sighed in a low voice. "Big sister, and little you haven't gone into closed-door training yet. But it seems that the dark bamboo has made a move." She was about to give an order, when she suddenly saw a person's shadow flash. It was a green shadow. It was Dukyu. She hadn't seen him for many days. How did you come out? Jun Lulu asked in a pleasantly surprised manner. Chapter 646. Tribulation Sword Master? Tribulation Sword Master has already appeared? Jun Lulu suddenly stood up. She knew nothing about Chu Yang. She had never heard of the identity of Tribulation Sword Master. Dukyu's eyes flashed. He said gently, Alu, there are some things that you better not know. The more you know, the more dangerous it will be. He clasped his hands behind his back and looked out of the window. Things like Tribulation Sword Master must not get involved. This is a great tribulation that occurs once every 10,000 years. If you get involved, you won't rest until you die. Jun Lulu nodded as if she understood something. Dukyu sighed softly. His eyes became clear and indifferent, as if he had seen through the world. Then, he sucked the falling clouds outside the window into his palm. Tribulation Sword Master has unified the world for generations. Are you so sure? That pair of eyes in the underworld. You dominate everything and turn the world upside down. But have you seen me, Dukyu? Little Dukyu. Jun Lulu looked at him worriedly. She suddenly felt that Dukyu was very strange today. Whether it was the way he spoke or his expression, they were all very different from usual. I'm fine. Dukyu smiled faintly. He walked slowly to the window and looked at the white clouds in the sky. His eyes were deep. The sword energy soared into the sky and stirred up the sky, but it allowed me to overcome the bottleneck that I had been stuck in for decades. I had an epiphany, and my illness was cured. What do you want to do? Do you want me to assist Tribulation Sword Master? Dukyu muttered to himself, as a mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. A strand of black hair fell down from his forehead, and fell on his face that was as smooth as jade. Because of this strand of hair that fell down, this green-robed young man suddenly had a languid and elegant scholarly aura. But how can I, Dukyu, be someone who listens to other people's orders? Dukyu snorted. If he can't get my approval with his own ability, even if he is Tribulation Sword Master, what can he do? After thinking for a while, he said slowly, Order the dark bamboo of the three heavens to pay attention to the war. If we can avoid participating in this chaos, then we should avoid it. All right. Jun Lulu agreed. The aristocratic families of the three heavens are already in chaos. If even the underworld is in chaos, then the three heavens will truly be finished. Dukyu said calmly, Your elder sister may come out of her seclusion in a day or two. It's best if she stays at the headquarters. Dukyu was a little worried. Upper three heavens is so chaotic. It is impossible for upper three heavens to not interfere. Bamboo and I have to take care of both sides. All right. I'll go and see what's going on. Dukyu thought about it for a while, but he still couldn't make up his mind. So he said worriedly, Master of Tribulation Sword, if we reveal this to the world, we will be exposed too early. Why is that? Dukyu took the report from Jun Lulu's hand and glanced at it. Then, he waved his sleeve and disappeared without a trace with a flash of green shadow. Jun Lulu forced a smile and said in her heart, You strictly ordered the dark bamboo not to participate. But you yourself can't wait to jump in. Isn't this self-contradictory? The night was as dark as ink, but it was emitting killing intent and blood. Ao Xiaoyin was covered in blood. There were serious injuries on his chest and back. His legs were dripping with blood. His shoulder had been shattered, and his right leg had been broken. It was hanging limply. His whole body was tied to Rue Butong's back, and he barely didn't fall down. He had almost exhausted all of his willpower to prevent himself from fainting. Put me down. Throw me away. Ao Xiaoyin couldn't help but shout and plead. He said hurriedly, They only want to kill me. Put me down, bastard. Put me down and leave quickly. Shut up. Rue Butong shouted angrily without turning his head. He followed behind Tan Tan and ran quickly. I beg you to put me down. If you don't put me down, we will all die. Ao Xiaoyin pleaded. Leave your lives and avenge me in the future, okay? I beg you. Grandpa. Big brother. Throw me away. Throw me away. Shut up. If you don't shut up, I will strip you naked. Rue Butong's face was ashen. His body was full of injuries, and they looked far more serious than Aoxia Yun's. However, he was still able to jump freely and run like the wind. Brother Rui. Aoxia Yun's voice became serious. Brother Rui, I, Aoxia Yun, have no regrets to make a friend like you in this life. But the situation is like this. If you don't drag me down, all of our people in front of you will die. Why do you have to let so many good brothers die for me? Put me down. If it weren't for the fact that he was tied to Rui Butong's body and had no strength to struggle at all, Aoxia Yun would have already struggled on his own. He didn't want to implicate Rui Butong and the others. Rui Butong ran silently. After a long time, he said in a low voice, Big Brother said that when we are alive together, we must live proudly together. If any of us is going to die, and we can't save him, we must also let him die with pride. He said solemnly, and everything that we brothers have done is his pride. Aoxia Yun, if you really can't avoid death at the last moment today, I hope that you can step onto the road to the netherworld proudly for our sake. Even if you become a ghost, you must be proud to the end, because we have done our best for you. Even if you are going to die, don't let down our efforts for you at this moment. Rui Butong finished his words in silence. Without another word, he continued to run. Aoxia Yun was suddenly stunned. He didn't say a word. After a long time, 2 drops of tears fell from his eyes. However, he bit his lips tightly. He only felt his emotions fluctuating. He had originally thought that as long as he let go of himself and sacrificed himself, he would be able to save them. But at this moment, Aoxia Yun felt that when facing such a man and such brothers, his request was tantamount to insulting them. Good brothers, even if I die now. A satisfied and proud smile appeared on Aoxia Yun's face. I will definitely be proud. Really. His heart suddenly became boiling hot, and a strange yet soul-warming feeling rose in his heart at this moment. Such brothers are true brothers. If I, Aoxia Yun, don't die today, I will certainly give up my life and soul to integrate into such brothers. Because this is a man's most precious wealth regardless of life or death. It is also a man's greatest pride. Aoxia Yun didn't speak. Instead, he operated his primary power with all his might, striving to recover some of his strength. You can make me proud even if I die. Can't I, Aoxia Yun, make you proud for me? At the same time, he also felt a little strange in his heart. He recalled the battle situation at that time. At that time, Rui Butong had fought 2 emperor-level experts alone. He had already been seriously injured. Aoxia Yun had even heard the sound of Rui Butong's ribs breaking. Moreover, the other party had attacked him with their sabers and swords. He was about to lose his life at the other party's hands. Aoxia Yun rushed forward with all his might and knocked him away. However, he himself was seriously injured. Then, Rui Butong rushed back with all his might, and once again used his body to take the fatal blow. He grabbed Aoxia Yun and flew out. He just happened to catch up with the team that was breaking out of the encirclement. Aoxia Yun was fiercely pushed by Aoxia Yun, and he finally caught up with the team. Normally, Rui Butong's injuries should be much more serious than his own. However, he was lying on Rui Butong's back at the moment. He couldn't move at all. He was almost on the verge of death. But Rui Butong could still carry me and flee for thousands of miles. What's going on? Tan Tan was carrying Xia Danfeng on his back. He was rolling forward like a gust of wind. He was now at the forefront of the fleeing team. He was leading the direction of their escape. Tan Tan's complexion was unprecedentedly cold. A faint trace of extreme madness was brewing in his pupils. The old ancestor of the Xie clan, Xie Zhiqiu, was behind Tan Tan. His entire body was bathed in blood. His snow-white beard was still dripping with blood. He was carrying Xie Danqiong on his back. Both of them clenched their teeth. They didn't say a word. They only rushed forward. They rushed to wherever they went. Xie Danfeng was already unconscious. Xie Danqiong's face was also like gold paper. His whole body was covered with injuries, and his breathing was weak. Everyone was battered and exhausted. Tan Tan and Rui Butong were regretting in their hearts. Chu Yang's divine healing medicine was effective for almost everyone. However, It wasn't effective for Tan Tan and Rui Butong. Therefore, both of them had boldly declined when Chu Yang had distributed the incomplete version of the heavy pill. Both of them wanted to ruthlessly slap their own faces now that they thought about it. I can't use it, but someone else can, right? They needed it the most at this time. But they couldn't take it out. The Xie clan had suddenly been attacked. 700 to 800 people had broken out of the encirclement at that time. However, less than 200 people had remained on the run until now. The pursuers had continuously shot concealed weapons during their escape. The night had been hazy. Some of the people who had fallen at the rear of the team had continuously issued blood-curdling screams. They had then fallen down and hadn't been able to crawl up again. The people in the front had felt as if a knife had been twisted in their hearts. They had bitten their lips until they bled. But they hadn't dared to turn back. That's because they would be completely wiped out if they turned back. No one had expected that the enemy's attack this time would be so powerful. They hadn't even used any tricks. They had directly rushed in. They had used their tyrannical martial strength to defeat everyone. They had been routed as soon as they had come into contact with the enemy. Xie Zhiqiu, who was a first-grade monarch-level expert, had fought 3 8th-grade emperor-level experts alone at first. And he had gained the upper hand. However, a mysterious black-clothed and masked man had appeared. And he had announced the destruction of the Xie clan with just one palm. Xie Zhiqiu, who was a first-grade monarch-level expert, had spouted blood and retreated with that one palm. Xie Zhiqiu had been in the Jianghu for many years. So, he had immediately realized that he couldn't do anything. Therefore, he had made a prompt decision to break out of the encirclement. And these people had finally escaped. Not even one of them would have been able to escape if they had been a moment late. And they would have waited for the enemy to seize the absolute advantage and form an encirclement. The pressure behind them was still faintly spreading like maggots in the tarsal bone. The distance between them and the enemy was like a dog's fangs. They were only a few miles apart at most. Perhaps, the enemy's experts could have caught up with them in such a short distance. However, the enemy was chasing after them at a neither fast nor slow pace. It was clear that they wanted to wait until they were exhausted. Then they would come and take advantage of them. Perhaps, they are using us as bait to lure Chu Yang and the others to come and support us, so they can catch us all in one fell swoop. But where did the 4 experts of the Ao clan get such formidable strength? Perhaps all the experts of the Ao clan have turned out in full strength to create such a result. I'm extremely embarrassed. This is the first update of the day. I said that I'm not asking for monthly votes. But I still read between the lines that I'm asking for recommendation votes. Everyone has discerning eyes. So who can't see it? But I was burning with impatience when I saw the monthly votes falling straight down from the sky. I wished that I could use all the treatment methods at once in order to relax my body. After all, yesterday was the last day of the double. So I wanted to work hard. I thought that I would be very relaxed after I'm done. Then, I would come back and issue a declaration of explosiveness. I would first ask for monthly votes. Then, I would work overtime to write my explosiveness. It's a beautiful dream. But the reality is very cruel. It's the complete opposite. I tried my best to ask the nurse to strengthen me yesterday. But I discovered that my entire body was paralyzed. It seemed as if my waist and crotch had been dislocated. I couldn't even sit for 5 minutes. I was so depressed that I wanted to die. I overreached myself. I was even scolded by the doctor in charge. The doctor said that in a situation like yours, you should be able to recover after a long period of time if you slowly recuperate. But strengthening the stimulation like this is pure nonsense. You're lucky that your nervous system wasn't paralyzed for a few days. I was sweating at that time. It's better to be honest for a while. When I went online today, I thought that I would receive a lot of complaints and curses. But unexpectedly, I received a lot of understanding and tolerance. My eyes immediately became moist. Thank you. Thank you very much. I didn't explode during this period of time. So I'll try my best to grasp the quality. I'll try my best. I won't let everyone feel that you've lost money by subscribing. Perhaps, this is the only way I can repay you before I reply. I'm very sorry. Thank you again. I won't open a single chapter. I'll just write it here. Because there will be a lot of pirated chapters that won't be forwarded. Many people who don't understand and don't know will come to the original version to abuse me. That's the most disgusting thing that I don't want to see. So, I'll explain it here. I hope everyone can understand. Chapter 647. Which way are we going? Xie Zhiqiu followed behind Tan Tan and asked while panting. Tan Tan stretched his neck and swallowed the core of a 5th-grade spirit beast that he had just stuffed into his mouth. Then he said without turning his head, "Just follow me. Why do you have so much nonsense to say? Let's rush into the forest in front of us at full speed." Tan Tan felt that the inner core of the spirit beast that he had swallowed had disappeared in the blink of an eye. Then, the strange mark on his forehead fiercely brightened. It seemed as if a flame had suddenly flashed in the deep prairie of a dark night. Xie Zhiqiu had no choice but to ask because he had discovered that Tan Tan had deviated from the original escape route. He had started to run in the direction of the Zhonglan battlefront. Rush into the forest? What's the use of rushing into the forest? Xie Zhiqiu muttered. But he didn't say anything else. So, he only rushed after Tan Tan with a belly full of anger. No one would feel comfortable in their heart if they were reprimanded by their great-granddaughter's son-in-law. Moreover, Tan Tan's entire body had overflowed with the imposing aura of a king when he had spoken. So Xie Zhiqiu didn't have the strength to refute him. In fact, he couldn't help but feel timid in his heart. There had been nearly 700 people of the Ao clan chasing after them. But there were only 400 people left now. However, there were more than 300 black-clothed people in the team. Everyone was wearing black clothes and had their faces covered. "Senior Zhuge, why don't we rush to kill them in a spurt of energy?" Ao Lang Yun knitted his brows and asked a black-clothed man beside him. "A long delay may lead to many dreams. It would be very bad if their reinforcements arrive. The one you want to kill is Ao Xie Yun, and we're waiting for their reinforcements," that Senior Zhuge said in a deep voice. Then his eyes flashed. "You juniors won't be forgiven if you delay our plan this time." Ao Lang Yun's complexion changed. He could only agree. Even he didn't understand why such a big helper had suddenly fallen from the sky. So many experts of the Zhuge clan of the upper 3 heavens had inexplicably appeared. Moreover, they had looked for him at first. Moreover, they had single-handedly planned an attack on the Xie clan. He didn't understand it. But it was exactly what he had hoped for. The 4 leaders of the Zhuge clan were looking at each other at this moment. They were discussing. "Did you find anything?" "I didn't find anything." "I didn't find anything either. This is really strange. The display of the spirit-slaughtering blade should be in the Xie family. But they still haven't found anything after chasing these people away for so long?" The leader had a deep look in his eyes. "Wait, reinforcements? Could it be that someone put something there? He's not here. That's the only way." Everyone chased in silence. "That old bastard from the sacred clan wouldn't be lying to us, right?" Another black-robed man said in a low voice. "No, that kind of torture is something that even a Jizuan wouldn't be able to endure. However, it should be true that he doesn't know the specifics." The leader of the black-clothed men said in a heavy voice. "Judging from the situation of the past 3 days, the mysterious awakener should be no more than these few people. The first one is that king of Hell Chu. The second one is probably Gu Du Xing, Dong Wushang, Rui Butong, GMO, and Luo Kadi. Only a few of them managed to improve tremendously during this period of time. Yes, Big Brother is right. I think that Rui Butong is the most suspicious. With his injuries, even if he is a monarch-level expert, he shouldn't be able to hold on any longer. Yet he is still alive and kicking. Let's wait. It's best to gather these people together and catch them all in one go. That way, we will definitely be able to find him. If we kill these people, and there's no one, the others will definitely run away. Then, it won't be easy to find him." Yes, the great tribulation of the 9 heavens. In addition to this awakener, there's also the tribulation sword master. This is a headache. Fortunately, I was able to get the news before this awakener awakened. Otherwise, The upper three heavens would have been done for if he had fully awakened. One is the Master of Calamity Sword, and the other is the Devil King. Big Brother is right. Big Brother, aren't the elders in the clan searching for the Tribulation Sword Master? Is there any news now? The mysteries of the heavens are vague and difficult to detect. Especially during this period of time, the mysteries of the heavens are in chaos. There's even less evidence. The leader of the black-clothed men said. However, if we can control this awakener, then finding the Tribulation Sword Master won't be a problem. Yes. Everyone's footsteps didn't stop. They discussed for a while and dispersed. Your Ao clan can go ahead and kill a few people, but be careful not to kill all of them. The leader of the black-clothed men looked at Ao Lang Yun and said, there are too many people now. It's not good to always be in a mess. Let's go and kill some of them first. Ao Lang Yun's spirit shook as he said, all right. Then he turned around and issued an order. The experts of the Ao clan rushed out from the crowd and rushed to the front. They chased after the fleeing troops of the Xie clan like a gust of wind. The 4 8th grade emperor-level experts took the lead. Pay attention to the detection of the awakeners on the battlefield. Several people of the Zhuge clan made eye contact with each other. A strange and evil knife appeared in their hands at the same time. It was only the length of a finger. However, the entire body of the knife light was flowing like a liquid. Slaughtering spirit blade. This was a tool specially used to detect the divine clan. The Zhuge clan had spent a great deal of effort to research and manufacture this tool to deal with the 3 stars divine clan. Kill! Ao clan's emperor-level expert Kai Shaoqing roared. He took a few big steps in the air and landed in the middle of the fleeing crowd of the Xie clan. His left hand held the sword in his right hand, and he attacked with all his strength. Where do you think you're going? Li Changlong's blue robe fluttered in the wind. He overtook Tan Tan, who was at the front of the group by 200 feet, and blocked the road. 2 whooshing sounds were heard. The other 2 8th grade emperor-level experts also flew down and stood side by side with Li Changlong. Tan Tan and Xie Zhiqiu stopped at the same time. Xie Zhiqiu stopped for a moment. Then he flew up and pounced forward. I must open a bloody path as soon as possible. Otherwise, the Xie clan will be done for if the road ahead gets blocked. Tan Tan's strange face twisted. He turned his head and swallowed 2 spirit beast cores. Then he rushed forward. Li Changlong laughed out loud and came forward to greet him. Meanwhile, Xie Zhiqiu and the other 2 emperor-level experts were fighting in an earth-shattering manner. Dust and smoke were flying in the air. When they were less than 100 feet away from the forest, they were stopped here. Xie Danfeng was seriously injured. She had been lying on Tan Tan's back. Tan Tan was running away. He was using one of his hands to heal her injuries. She felt a bit better now. Tan Tan was fighting fiercely at this moment. His body was constantly changing positions. The range of his movements was too big. So she finally woke up. She opened her eyes and saw a blue-robed old man fighting with Tan Tan in front of her. Tan Tan was at an absolute disadvantage at this moment, so she couldn't help but be shocked. Tan Tan had been running away for a long time. Moreover, he was seriously injured. He was like an arrow at the end of its flight. Li Changlong was an 8th grade emperor-level expert, so he was much stronger than Tan Tan. So, he had completely suppressed Tan Tan. Tan Tan would have been in danger if it weren't for the Zhuge clan's strict order not to kill the main characters of this team. Puff! Tan Tan's chest was fiercely hit by a palm strike. He spouted a mouthful of blood and was sent flying backwards. Li Changlong's eyes flashed with a cruel light. However, he didn't relax. Tan Tan looked as if he was about to fall to the ground, but he fiercely tilted his body at the last moment and landed heavily on the ground. His face was dripping with blood. However, Xie Danfeng was safe and sound on his back. Xie Danfeng suddenly felt grief in her heart. She shouted, "Put me down! Put me down!" Tan Tan spat out the soil in his mouth. Then he turned over and jumped up. He ignored Xie Danfeng's pleading. He faced Li Changlong and brazenly attacked. Bang! 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 Both of them exchanged 3 moves in a row. Then Tan Tan was sent flying again. However, he couldn't turn over completely this time. He only turned his body sideways and fiercely crashed into a big tree. Tantan's left arm and 3 ribs on his left chest were broken at the same time with a few cracking sounds. However, he firmly held his body. He didn't allow Xie Danfeng to receive the slightest impact or injury on his back. Xie Danfeng burst into tears. Don't cry. Tantan spoke in a rare serious and deep voice. I'm a man. If I can't even protect my own woman, or if I can't protect her, then what kind of man am I? I'm going to die today. It's my responsibility as your man. Why are you crying? Tantan shouted in a stern voice. Xie Danfeng didn't dare to cry out loud again, but more tears flowed down her cheeks. What a good man. I'd like to see how you act like a man. Li Changlong sneered and shot his palm. This emperor-level expert had been framed as a sex fiend by Chu Yang. His heart throbbed for no reason when he saw this scene. However, he didn't show any mercy in his attack. His palm was aimed at Tantan's right shoulder. Tantan's right shoulder would have been shattered by the wind of his palm. Moreover, it would have also sent Xie Danfeng flying. Li Changlong couldn't bear to see lovers ever since his mentality had changed. You're in love with each other? See how I break up a pair of lovebirds. I don't believe that a man can choose love when he's faced with certain death. Humph! A strong wind whooshed as he shot his palm. Tantan couldn't avoid it. Don't hurt my man! Xie Danfeng crazily screamed. She was dripping with tears. She suddenly broke free from Tantan's back and used her head to fiercely collide with Li Changlong's right palm. Li Changlong was gobsmacked. A look of disbelief appeared in his eyes. It seemed as if some part of his heart had been touched at this moment. So his palm couldn't help but slow down. Tantan screamed miserably. He didn't know where he got the strength from, but he used his broken left shoulder to fiercely hit the tree. His body twisted, and one could even hear the cracking sounds of his broken ribs breaking into several pieces. However, he didn't have the time to delay. He pushed Xie Danfeng away and used his chest to fiercely meet Li Changlong's right palm. Puff! Tantan's body was thrown up like an embroidered ball. He landed on the ground and barely used his remaining strength to turn over. However, he still used his body as a cushion on the ground. Xie Danfeng's body fell down and fell on Tantan's body. Another rib broke with a crack sound. Tantan's eyes emitted a crazy and affectionate ray of light. He whispered, Go quickly. Then, he fiercely pushed Xie Danfeng down from his body. He used the last of his strength to push her away. His scarred body miraculously stood up again and stood in front of Li Changlong. No one can hurt her if I don't die. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.